My toxic entitled coworker freaks out on me in a way I never expected after I tried to help him out by taking over some of his tables at our restaurant that he couldn't serve in a timely manner. He even went as far as taking the tips off of the tables that I helped him with, despite the fact that I literally did all the work for him, resulting in one of the biggest meltdowns I've ever seen in my life. Here's how it happened. Okay, so today was a really busy night, and on top of that, one of our coworkers got sick just before the evening shift started. That means that we were understaffed. Now, one of my coworkers had tables inside and also outside on the street. While I had just relatively small and easy to handle sections inside the restaurant, my coworker was so busy outside that he wasn't able to properly handle his tables inside. For the first table in his section, I had to do everything. I took the orders, I brought the drinks, the food, I talked with the guests, and I brought the refill, and then I even had to clean the whole dishes. And all this time, my coworker was nowhere to be seen. But he wanted to keep that table under his name, so I gave him the receipt copy once I went to cash the table in. At the end, I even had to clean the table, while my coworker did nothing but ended up taking the tip for himself. Like, this guy even went to complain later that I went to cash in on his table. So I straight up told him that if he wasn't able to handle his whole section, that he could just give me his tables inside and he could do the ones out on the street. Well, he denied my request in a bit of a rude manner and claimed that he could still manage this. Other people came to seat in that section, and he again just wasn't present. But at this point, I'd had enough of this. Why on earth should I do everything when he's just gonna take the tips at the end of it? So I put the new tables on my name, and when I did this, he went nuts and started screaming at me that I should leave his tables alone, to which I reminded him that nobody was there, and the boss wouldn't like the tables to wait 20 minutes just to order a drink. Later in the night, a couple arrives and wants to sit on the street. So I clean the table, I bring the menu, and once again, I take the order. He then comes up to me and says to me, "Oh, just do the whole street yourself now." But here's the thing, I actually didn't even want to take that table for myself. I just wanted to help out a little. He goes inside and starts to make another big drama, complaining loudly about me in front of the boss and our colleagues. At the end of it, I had to do everything by myself outside on the street because he just didn't want it anymore. And I personally find this behavior wrong. It was busy, we were missing staff, and he just wants to insist doing everything just by himself. That would greatly slow down service and clients would start complaining. He even claimed that I should at least inform him when I take the orders from his tables, but I just don't find that right. He should have given me half of his section already at the start, since he was clearly unable to manage all of this. Plus, our first and only priority is to make sure the guests are satisfied. Now, I was expecting my manager to defend me, but he got quite shy over the situation, and instead, he was telling him things like, "We are a team and we help each other out. Look, we are understaffed," and stuff like that. But he never told him in clear words that he was totally in the wrong. So honestly, what do you guys think about all of this? Because right now, I'm still very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I want to echo what someone already said in the comments section, but your manager is spineless. This absolutely should have been addressed. This guy cannot handle all those tables and was acting like an idiot the entire time. You were literally just trying to help him out, and this guy tries to be like, "I can handle it myself, what are you doing?" And that's not fair because you literally were just trying to be a team player. And this guy has the audacity to come around and be like, "Oh, this is your fault." So next time, if he ever does try to pull that crap, I would just let him burn to the ground. I would refuse to help him out, and when he does complain about it, because you know he will, just kindly remind him the last time you tried to help him out and he bit your head off. Because yeah, this is inappropriate behavior. This guy's getting pissed off because he can't handle all the orders in front of him, but somehow this is your fault for trying to help out. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. If I was waiting tables again and I had coworkers willing to help me out because I literally couldn't handle all the tables in front of me, I would be high-fiving them and be like, "Oh yeah, take the tips, take the tables, I really appreciate it." Because to do otherwise is so ungrateful. He's literally burned a bridge with the original poster for them ever helping him out again. And honestly, that's the way it should be, because his behavior is awful and it absolutely is not okay. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I got fired from my serving job at a restaurant I just started at, literally after my 4th training shift. And despite the fact that my trainer literally did nothing to train me on the job, and instead decided to chat with her friends the entire time, I was still reprimanded and written up for not doing my job right, leaving me wondering if I could have done a single thing differently. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that I have no serving experience. I told the manager this in our interview, and she said that was a good thing, because some people with serving experience do things the way their old job did it. Anyways, I sent my availability for the next 2 weeks, and then I received the message. It said the following: "As we approach our busiest season of the year, it's crucial that all of our team members are fully up to speed. Unfortunately, the progress observed during your your training shifts hasn't aligned with our expectations. Despite the guidance provided across multiple training days, key information and procedures were not consistently retained and applied in subsequent shifts. This feedback has been shared by both our management and team members who worked alongside you. Given the demands of our upcoming season, we are unable to extend additional training time and believe it's best that we part ways at this point. Now, mind you, the first 2 training shifts, the trainer was chit-chatting half the time with the same manager and bartender, so I'm not sure exactly what they wanted me to do during this. Now, my 3rd shift, I thought I did pretty well. At least that's what the table said. On my 4th shift, the trainer called me lazy for not writing one table's order. I know she doesn't do it herself, but she's been there a long time. I was using the bathroom and she knew this. I was practicing the menu, and I did ask the trainer last time if she could send me pictures of the point of sale system so that I could practice using the names on there to write as I'm taking people's orders. But I also was practicing the point of sale system and they told me I was doing a good job. So I'm not sure if picking up fast enough was the real reason, but it just kinda hurts. But unfortunately, I was kind of expecting this after not being on the schedule for 2 weeks. And I saw that they hired someone else during those 2 weeks and they got finished with training after just 3 shifts. I genuinely enjoyed the job, but at this point, I'm not sure if I could continue serving further if this is how they're gonna view me. What should I do? Okay, honestly, someone in the comment section said it best, but the fact that the first 2 training sessions are just the trainer not doing their job, like that for me really does explain that yeah, this place sucks and they don't care about whether or not you're gonna do good. If anything, it's probably one big click and they're just gonna try and be like, oh, how does their personality gel with the rest of us? And it's like, dude, do you want me to do a good job or do you want to be my friend? We can do both, by the way, but like it clearly seems like you don't care about me being good at my job. And that's not fair for you at all. Like seriously, you should be expected to have some kind of training going into your job, and the fact that they didn't train you right is honestly what's really to blame. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about this because this does not sound like a good working environment, and I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would not want to work there. Today, my psychiatrist asked to move in with me, which I believe is incredibly inappropriate, but right now I'm not sure if I'm overreacting because this is seriously a weird situation. Here's what's happening. Okay, so last week I had an appointment with my psychiatrist and I disclosed to her that my husband and I were buying a house. She asked details of the house and when we were closing, so I told her exactly what was going on. She then replied by saying, "That's perfect. I just need 1 bedroom and a kitchen. I love to cook." Now, of course, at first I thought she was joking, but then she went on to say, "I told my landlord I'm moving out of my current place because the commute is too far and I'm looking for something closer to work. Would you be willing to rent a room out to me?" She then showed me some text messages with her current landlord who was praising her for being a good tenant. Now, I just kind of brushed it off and I said, well, I don't know about a room, but the place we are renting now will be available once we move out. And she said that would be nice, but she was looking for something cheaper. As our session ended, she told me to call her if I needed her, and then she said, "But I might need you first." Now, my husband thought it was funny when I told him, but my best friend thinks that this woman should not be a psychiatrist. Now, I've had previous uncomfortable encounters with her where she told me my miscarriage happened because I wasn't happy enough, and at this most current session, she told me it's because my baby knew that we didn't own a home yet. So seriously, am I overreacting by thinking that this person is wildly inappropriate? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, yeah, this lady's completely out of line. She's literally been like, "Oh, let me move in, I love to cook," and then tried to say, "Oh yeah, your baby wasn't born because you weren't happy enough." Or even trying to be like, "Yeah, you don't have a home, so that's why the baby wasn't born." Like, what is going on right now? She doesn't sound like a good doctor at all. She's trying to mix in her personal and professional life, and that is like highly inappropriate with clients. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can imagine this is crossing a lot of ethical lines. So no, you're not overreacting, and in fact, I would probably never go back to her ever again, because this is something that definitely needs to be discussed with some kind of like oversight authority of some kind, because what she's doing is completely unacceptable. My mom constantly makes every single conversation all about her, constantly ignoring any conversation I try to have with her, while also derailing what we're saying to make it about her. And I'm seriously so exhausted dealing with this that I just don't know how to fix it. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my mother always finds some way to bring every story back to herself. Whether it's negative or positive, she never listens to a story without immediately relating it to herself. When I was younger, I would complain about things going on in my life, and without fail, she would always cut me off and talk about how much harder she had it without listening to or affirming anything I said. So I just stopped coming to her with any problems, but even now, if I dare say anything negative about anything, she will find a way to bring it back to herself and just whine and cry and talk about how difficult her life is. Once, I literally said I'm fighting with a friend and that I was upset, and she just didn't acknowledge it, and instead just said, "You know, I was really popular back in China, and I had a lot of friends," and then started talking about how she had a fight with a friend who was also jealous of her too. Now, when she complains, she sucks all the energy out of the room and just cries and wails while trying to turn everyone into her therapist. If we complain for one single sentence, she lashes out and she's like, "So what? I'm suffering too." Even when I talk about positive things, she will not even listen or reply to a single part of the story without just jumping into a story about herself somehow. For example, a few weeks ago, I mentioned that a friend of mine went to Boston and enjoyed his trip. Now, without even pretending to be interested for a single second, like asking which friend it was or what he did, she immediately launched into a story about how 20 years ago, she went to Boston and then went into detail about how great it was. Like she just heard the word Boston and jumped right into her own story without ever being like, "Oh, that's nice." I tried to continue my story by saying, "Yeah, he did this and that," and it's like she didn't even hear me. She just kept going on and on about her own anecdotes. And last week, it was my cousin's birthday, and she spent the entire time talking about her own birthday and what she wanted to do in 5 months. I mean, she barely even acknowledged that it was his birthday, and whenever someone would bring up his accomplishments, she would start talking about her own kids' achievements instead. It's honestly so exhausting, and I just can't deal with this for another minute. Okay, honestly, I deal with people like this on a daily basis, and I cannot stand it. I've got some family and friends who kind of fit the bill for this, and they are the worst people to talk to. And for me, it makes me hesitant to ever share anything with them ever again. It doesn't matter if it's good news or bad news, like I know for a fact they're gonna make it about themselves, and that is simply obnoxious because everything's about them. And it's not like you're being selfish by trying to share something about yourself or something that's going on. Like you're literally just trying to get a word in, and they're turning around and making this all about themselves. Like that is so annoying. So truly, I have so much sympathy for the original poster because I know exactly what this is like, because living like this is completely miserable. My boyfriend stormed out on my 30th birthday, saying that I ruined it for myself and that I need to apologize for my behavior. But I have simply not done anything wrong to this man, as he is mistreating me in a way that's honestly very concerning. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for a little over a year, and honestly, I don't know what to think anymore. For some context, last year on this exact date, I was blindsided with news that I unfairly and unexpectedly failed a clinical rotation in my doctorate program. They failed me 8 months before graduation, and the program is 4 years in total, and I would have graduated in May. I've spent the last year grieving that, going through some severe depression, and just last month, I finally got to re-enter the class. I'm now working with a lawyer and spending thousands of dollars because the same mentor and professor tried to dismiss me unfairly again during the first week of classes, after 1 year of waiting to retake this class, as it is only offered once a year. Just yesterday, the lawyer asked me for a time-sensitive document and also has asked for one today on my birthday. He came over unexpectedly last night, even though I told him I had a lot to do. I barely slept. This morning, I was tired, I had low energy, and I was emotionally drained. But despite all of that, I wasn't being mean and I wasn't trying to pick a fight. Now, I asked what we should do today, as our only plan was at 8 o'clock having a dinner with my family. And he just said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And when he said that, I got frustrated. I've been carrying so much lately. I was hoping he would just step up, make a plan, or even grab a coffee or breakfast to start the day. I took a shower and I got ready, etc., which was about an hour's worth of time. And I thought when I went downstairs at around 10:30 in the morning, he would have a coffee waiting for me since I expressed that I wanted one. Well, I went downstairs and he was sitting on the couch with a grim look on his face. I said to him, "You didn't get a coffee or anything like that?" And when I said that, he got defensive and said that I was being ungrateful. He ended up yelling at me, storming out, telling me that I ruined my own birthday, cursing at me, and that I should just sit with the consequences of how I acted. He left at around 11:30 in the morning and hasn't contacted me once. We have a dinner reservation tomorrow with some of our friends, but he told me that he would go for the sake of the guests and not to celebrate me. Now it's 6 o'clock in the evening and I still haven't heard from him. I need to write another legal document for my lawyer because today is the last day of the semester, and I'm under intense pressure to get it written up as soon as possible. And my boyfriend knows all of this. I'm so depressed and overwhelmed that I can't move. I don't even want to go to dinner with my family anymore. But he says I never take accountability. He says I make everything about me, but I don't even scream at him. I don't insult him. I just express disappointment and that I was hoping to feel special after the last year on my birthday. I also want to mention that once he started yelling at me and insisting that I said he does nothing for me, which is something I never said, and telling me that I owe him an apology and that I need to take accountability, I just lost it. He knows I'm not okay and all the pressure I'm under and acting this way on my birthday. At this point, I started yelling back and crying and slammed my bedroom door. And that's when he left and said, "Screw you." But I just said, "You're doing this on my birthday? You know I was failed unexpectedly last year on my exact birthday, and I wanted to reclaim that." He just said to me that he didn't care and that I should think about my behavior and that they have consequences. Now, his dad and I share the same birthday. birthday. He is very enmeshed with his family, which I usually don't mind since we live an hour apart and don't get to see each other daily. Before my birthday, he brought up using a hotel suite that we had won during a Halloween contest to celebrate with his dad on Friday, my actual birthday. And the hotel is meaningful to his parents because they spent a part of their honeymoon there. He then said we could celebrate my birthday the next day instead. Also, his parents don't like me because they think I'm unreliable and unserious, because of my unexpected clinical failure. And my parents don't like him because they are around a lot when he acts like this, and they see me cry on the phone and get anxious and all this other stuff, when I should be focusing on school. So me celebrating with his family on Friday was just not an option. I was a little disappointed as it was my 30th birthday, and I hoped that he would want to spend the actual day with me, or at least just a part of it. But when I said that, he flipped out and called me selfish and yelled at me. I was already so emotionally drained from everything going on with school and with the lawyer that I just told him it was fine. I even sent him screenshots of my mom telling me it wasn't a big deal and to let him celebrate with his family so he would just calm down and stop attacking me. Later on, I found out his sister and her boyfriend were in Greece, so his family wasn't even celebrating that day and expected me to just assume he can come to dinner with my family and I. And this honestly left a bad taste in my mouth and ruined the excitement around my birthday. So seriously, is this on me at all? Or is he being emotionally awful and just unsafe? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest, it really sounds like your boyfriend is a narcissist. This guy's lying straight to your face. He's trying to project his own problems onto you as if you did anything wrong, which, spoiler alert, you didn't do anything. And instead, this guy's a complete weirdo. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. He's trying to be like, you need to apologize for your behavior. But it's like, what did you do? You haven't done a single thing. He's screaming at you on your birthday, and he's trying to be like, you need to be more grateful for this. And it's like, what? The bare minimum of you spending time with, I don't know, your partner who you're supposed to care about? Like, I'm sorry, it really seems like true colors are coming out, and that, in my opinion, should be your biggest red flag. Because I really think you can find someone better because this situation is incredibly sketchy. Am I the jerk for saying no to a trip with my boyfriend and his child, since I literally feel like an afterthought in my relationship? Because right now, I'm honestly so frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 25-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend for about 3.5 years. Over a year ago, we moved in together because my housemate was moving out, and at the time, we were both college students, and it just felt like the right next step. Due to personal reasons, my boyfriend had to change weekend jobs and ended up going back to an old job in his mother's town, which is about an hour's drive away. Ever since then, he's been going there every weekend and coming back on Mondays. He also has a child from a previous relationship who he sees every other weekend. Because we both used to work weekends, I don't spend a lot of time with his son, just during the summer for a few weeks when the child would stay with us. Now, I will be honest, my boyfriend wasn't always the most involved dad, but he's improved a lot, and I do admire that. But still, since he went back to working near his mom's place, we've been seeing each other a lot less and fighting a lot more. We've even fought in front of his child. Once, during an argument, my boyfriend told me, I don't need you, in front of his son, and that really hurt. And ever since then, the child has sometimes disrespected me. My boyfriend often turns a blind eye to it, probably because he only sees his son a few times a month. A couple of months ago, my boyfriend was offered a full-time job at his current workplace. He didn't ask me how I felt about it, he just told me he'd accepted it. And you know what? I congratulated him. I was really happy for him because he was excited, and the job is great for his resume. I mean, he is almost done with a software development degree, but it still stung that he didn't talk to me first or even think about what that meant for our relationship. After that, he moved back in with his mom, but left all of his stuff in our place. He kept paying rent, but it honestly just felt really weird. Like he'd officially moved out. I couldn't afford the rent on my own, and when we fought, he would say he was still helping me by paying for it. And that seriously rubbed me the wrong way, especially since his things were still here. So I found a flatmate and asked him to collect his belongings, and that's exactly what he did. Ever since then, he only comes over on weekends when he has his child, which means no couples time. He sleeps in the same bed as his son when they're here, so I still sleep alone. And last weekend, we had a huge fight. I was crying, exhausted, and very upset, and we both agreed that things need to change. Well, today, he asked if I was going to come over and visit, and I just said no. I went last week, and I drive over 500 kilometers a week just to get to and from work. I'm really tired, and I'm also down for overtime this Sunday. He then suggested that we go on a ferry trip from Dublin to Liverpool for the bank holiday, and I didn't love the idea as I would rather fly, but I was open to it. That is until he mentioned he's bringing his son. I then blurted out that I wasn't interested in going on a trip with them, and I had assumed that this would be something for just the two of us to try and reconnect. Well, when I said that, he got upset, saying that I used to be very hands-on with his son, watching him so my boyfriend could rest or play video games, as well as cooking and cleaning, taking him to the doctor, waking up in the middle of the night to give him medicine or help him go to the bathroom. But after that day he told me that he didn't need me, I felt like a complete idiot, and so I just stepped back. I went from acting like a stepmom to just being dad's girlfriend. I still play with the child occasionally, but that's about it. During our argument, my boyfriend called me a vegetable for the way I behave around his son, and this really hurt. I mean, just the day before, I had taken them both to see Lilo and Stitch and paid for it, and while he apologized later, the comment still stuck with me. When his son is around, I feel like I don't belong. I seriously feel like I'm in the way, and if my boyfriend tries to hug me, his child will run in between us and ask his dad to stay with him instead. Now, I don't blame the kid. He's only 6, but I do think it's my boyfriend's responsibility to manage those boundaries. I used to feel welcome with them, but now I simply don't. I feel like I'm just there on the outside looking in. I really don't want to take this trip with them. I thought this was going to be a chance for us to spend time together and fix what's already been broken. But again, I feel like I'm just an afterthought, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest with the original poster, because your boyfriend is one giant walking red flag. Like, this guy wants a babysitter, he wants someone who will cook for him, he wants you to literally take care of your kid, but at the end of the day, he doesn't want a relationship. And that really is so weird to me. So on that end, I don't blame you for being really frustrated and being like, okay, I'm an afterthought here. This guy doesn't care about me. Look at the way he's treating me. I think you're spot on for seeing things exactly the way they are, because in my opinion, your boyfriend is taking advantage of you, and that seems like a huge waste of time.
Karen says I showed my hoo-ha to her kid, but I'm a femboy. This incident with the entitled mother happened back when I took a special school course to get my middle and high school exams and studied to become an auto mechanic. Let's bring on the crazies. My boyfriend and I usually have a date night every Friday, and this particular evening we decided to go to the Greek restaurant a couple of blocks from our apartment downtown. We met up at home after work to get changed. I'm a femboy, so I used some time to get ready, combed and washed my hair, put a bit of makeup on and found my best dress. A black Bardot frill details bodycon, just so you have an idea of what I wore since it comes into play later. But we start to walk downstairs and onto the restaurant. This restaurant requires a pre-order to be able to get a seat, and we had reserved a week earlier after our last date. So we get there and get seated, after our wishes, in the smoking allowed area since both of us are smokers. We sit down and decide to order a beer each, so we had a drink until our food was ready, and then fired up a cigarette. Enter the entitled family. The family got seated right next to us. We hear a child's voice say, "Mommy, it smells. I don't like it." "I know, sweetie." The lady looks at us smoking. "Excuse me." We didn't think she was talking to us. A few seconds pass and then, "Excuse me?" We look over at her. "My son is uncomfortable you're smoking. Could you put them out?" My boyfriend says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but if you don't like us smoking, why did you choose to seat in the smoking allowed area?" "Smoking is not allowed. This is a restaurant after all." My boyfriend is very good at not taking any BS. He points to the at least 15 signs within our site that say allowed. Look. However, she seems immune to reality. "Those are fake. You put them there since you knew that smoking wouldn't be allowed. Just stop smoking near my kid." The waiter got to our area and called out our number. She says, "Oh, that's our order." We were shocked, but we called the waiter over. What the lady didn't think about was that we got a note with a number by the waiter when we were placing our orders. They'd not ordered yet, so I showed our number to the waiter. The lady, of course, just denies this. "She stole our note. That working girl who's not wearing anything but lingerie in public." For those of you who Googled the dress when I said it earlier, it's nothing close to lingerie or anything like that. A bit of a tight fit maybe, but nothing more alluring than that. The lady keeps on going. "She even started harassing my son and me, showing her privates." My boyfriend and I looked at each other and started laughing. "Look at this, they're laughing at us." The waiter says, "Is this true?" To which I explain, "No, it isn't." And I explain that she didn't want us smoking and tried to take our food. The waiter, however, asks, "Do you have any proof?" She looked at us. I'm short and skinny, and I don't look my age, so I always bring my passport in my purse. The waiter checks it out and then asks the mother, "Are you sure she showed you her downstairs area?" "Yes, of course." "Okay. For one thing, he's a guy," and the look on the mother's face was priceless. We got our drinks on the house, and the entitled family got escorted out of the restaurant. We still laugh about it once in a while. Strong disconnect to reality on display from that woman. I do kind of wonder if she really believed that the couple bought a whole bunch of smoking allowed signs to pin up at the restaurant just to gaslight not only the other nearby diners, but also all the employees at the restaurant. And although I wish that was the case, it seems a lot more likely that this woman was just relying on her fluent use of BS language to just talk over and through any difficulties that came up. I'm also assuming that she would have had to agree to sit in the smoking area over the phone to have ended up there in the first place. In which case, let's throw being a bad parent onto the list of charges. So, good riddance to this lady, just an appalling liar who's prepared to throw other people out of a restaurant because she didn't plan ahead properly. Poor kid. Hopefully they'll be happier at McDonald's anyway. I'm happy that their mother got the fitting just desserts for her behavior. Knock on my door despite my no soliciting sign? Alright, just sit on the curb and forget about selling anything in my town for the rest of your day. We moved into a new cookie-cutter neighborhood, and since then we've been bothered by pest control, carpet cleaners, lawn care, solar panel firms, among other things. This was multiple times a day at first, but then we put up a no soliciting sign, and for a while it worked pretty well. Fast forward to this week, and salespeople have been ringing my doorbell daily despite my sign. I started by chewing them out and finding their businesses online to leave bad Yelp and Google reviews about the encounter, and then I researched city ordinances. Apparently, they need a permit, which most of them don't have, and they can't ignore a no soliciting sign. It's $250 per violation. Awesome. I had my first victim yesterday who acknowledged that he'd read my sign, but thought his info about solar panels was something I'd want to hear, even though I specifically had a sign because I didn't want to be bothered. I chewed him out, and when he left, I called the police non-emergency number. The police came after only 15 minutes and caught up with him down the street. I don't know if he was cited, but he just sat on the curb after the police left, probably because they told him to stop knocking on doors, period, due to a lack of a permit. He had to wait there for at least an hour and a half for his ride. In short, sales guy ignored my no soliciting sign deliberately, got talked to by the police, possibly fined, and had to sit for a few hours waiting for his ride. Is that too mean? Am I the jerk? Hey, listen, viewers, did you know that laws like this existed? Because I would bet that a bunch of you just got real excited to learn that this was an option for you. As with a lot of the guesses I have to make, I'm guessing that having enough of these salespeople come to your doors that you have to buy a damn sign to stop them must kind of be a US thing? Because I don't see more than 2 to 3 salespeople a year in any of the countries that I've lived in. It's a shame that the punishment is happening to the lower-level street scrubs rather than the organization that has conned them into this unregistered commission-based job, the job that probably also told them to ignore the signs, but you have every right to defend your privacy. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Entitled mum decides I don't belong in my workplace because I'm a girl, and then I get an asthma attack. So I'm the only girl in an auto collision class at a technical college. I also have extreme asthma, so I often have to wear a dust mask and take an inhaler every half hour to make sure that I don't have an asthma attack and have to go to the hospital. At the school, sometimes the other teachers will come down and ask us to detail their cars for them, and we often do. Since going into any automotive field, you'll start as a detailer, and we need to constantly stay on top of our game for it. On this day, I saw a woman who I know taught one of the other classes come in with her kid while I was working on sanding the paint off a car that needed to be repainted. It was really old and looked really trashy. I had to sand it down and remove the wheels. The kid looked about 13-ish, so I thought at first that maybe he was a middle school kid coming to check out the class to see if he wanted to join. But then I overheard his mum talking to my teacher about washing her car. I got up to overhear because I'm extremely nosy, and I noticed that the kid seemed to be a bit bothered by the dust. A lot of people were sanding that day, and I knew the dust bugged me, so I figured someone who wasn't so used to it was going to have trouble. I went into the tool room where we keep the dust masks, and I found a disposable one. As a note, I had a thicker mask that day as I couldn't find some of our disposable ones a few days ago, and didn't want to waste the really nice one that I'd found. I found the disposable ones this time though. I bought him the mask and handed it to him, taking mine off so that I could talk to him and be more polite. I say, "Here, you look like you could use it." The kid takes the mask and slips it on. "Thanks, the dust is really thick in here." I say, "Yeah, I know, if you're not used to it, it'll bug you." It still bugs me. We both chuckle a bit, and then when the mother sees me, as my teacher walked away to add her to our schedule, the lady gave me this weird, disgusted look, seeing my dusty clothes. "Young lady, where can my son get that uniform? I don't want his clothes to get dirty while we're here." I thought she was confused about something and said, "Oh, sorry, this is my uniform. Your son will have to get one when he joins the class." Then she looked confused. "Why do you have a uniform like that? Shouldn't you be wearing scrubs or something?" I ask, "What do you mean?" She then says, "Oh, come on, you're a girl. There aren't any other girls here. Shouldn't you be in the nursing program or the child development program?" I'm used to people thinking I belong in those programs until they see me in uniform, or people in general thinking that I should work with kids, so this doesn't bother me so much. I just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom, but no, I work here in the shop." There are other girls in the afternoon class, though. There was a morning and afternoon class, and the afternoon class had 4 girls in it, I think. She looks appalled. "What a hussy. I'll bet you don't know a thing about cars. I'll bet you only joined this class to flaunt around your whore clothes to these innocent boys." For some background, I'll have you know I'm probably the most conservative person in the class, mostly because I am a girl. I change in the tool room since there isn't a girls' locker room, and I always wear my work clothes over the top of my regular clothes. I'm also wearing the exact same thing as the guys, as my clothes are men's clothes, and there's nothing remotely revealing about them in any way. So I say, "Mom, first, I have a boyfriend and I really don't need to attract the attention of these men. Second, if I were to only be here for the men, I would have been kicked out a long time ago because I'd be too focused on getting a man rather than the multitude of tests we have to take on a bi-weekly basis, and the hard work that we have to do here alongside that. Third, I don't know who you think you are coming in here and talking to me like that, but I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't treat me this way, as I'm aware that when your car comes through us to be cleaned, I'll be part of the group cleaning your car." She goes red in the face. "Absolutely not. I'll not have some hussy trying to seduce these poor boys into doing disgusting things inside of my family car. You're scarring my son and you need to leave." I rolled my eyes and decided to just leave her alone to get back to work, putting my mask back on. A few minutes later, the teacher still hadn't gotten back to her, as he was pulled away by some of the other students, so this lady came back over to interrogate me some more. I'd been taking this car apart so that we could paint it better, as an extension cord was attached to it and we couldn't paint that. "What do you think you're doing?" I sigh, but keep my cool. I'm using a screwdriver to the hooks, holding the extension cord to this cart so that we can paint it. "Let my son do it. He knows how to work his way around tools." The kid looks mortified and he was shaking his head. I say, "Sorry, but I can't do that. I have lots of work to do, and the hooks are a little bit weird to get off." But of course, this lady wasn't having that. "Take off that stupid mask when you speak to me. Why are you even wearing it? Trying to lure my son in so he feels more welcomed into your little world because you're both wearing masks?" I'm really annoyed now. "No, I'm wearing the mask because the dust bothers my asthma. I saw that the dust was bothering your son too, so I gave him one. I then pulled my asthma inhaler out to show her because I thought it might keep her from going full entitled parent on me. Big mistake. "Put that thing away, and now you're trying to pull him in with your illegal substances." I quickly put it away, but the damage was done. "And if the dust is so bad, you should give your son my mask. He obviously needs it more than you do. You're probably faking it for attention and substances." Now, my mask was much thicker and was really helping me. Her son was clearly fine with the one I gave him, and I knew he was just going to throw it away when he left, which is what those masks were for. So I say, "I'm sorry, but I really need this mask to keep the dust out of my lungs. Your son seems to be fine with the one I gave him." "No, he has far worse asthma than you could imagine. He needs that mask." "Well, I'm sorry, but these masks aren't disposable like the one I gave your son. I need to use mine for a long time. He'll only need his until you leave." "I don't care. Give me your mask and get out of this garage, or else I'll tell your teacher that you were harassing my son." At this point, I'm really mad, but I'd never lose my temper in my workplace. We have cameras all over the place, and the guys were looking over as this woman lost her mind at me. The teacher could also see through the window of our separate classroom, though he wasn't looking at that moment, as he was talking to another student. I said, "Go tell him if you really want to." I wasn't really afraid of her accusations, and I crossed my arms at her. But the guys weren't having it, and they started coming over. One of them looked ready to physically fight her. "Hey, why don't you get the hell out of here before we tell him how you're harassing her? She has more of a right to be here than you do." "How dare you talk to me like that? Do you know who I am?" Another one chimes in. Yeah, you're the lady who came to ask us for a favor that we don't have to do and probably aren't going to do because of the way you're treating one of our hardest workers. Wait until your teacher hears about this. You'll all be removed from this school for assault and harassment." At this point, she's interrupted by our teacher coming out of the classroom. "No, actually, you need to leave. We won't be doing this service for you." You could see the cogs turning in her mind. "Your little hussy of a student was trying to touch my son. I want her removed from the school and the police called on her at once. I want them," she pointed at the guys who were trying to help, "to be arrested for attacking me and threatening my son." "I don't think that's going to happen. I sat there and watched you come over and bother my students while they were working. We're not going to be washing your car, and I'd appreciate it if you left and wouldn't come back to my shop." She lost her mind, but she grabbed her kid by the wrist and dragged him out, but not before ripping my dust mask off, taking an air hose that I'd been using to blow the dust off when I sand, and blew a whole bunch of fricking dust into my face. I ended up needing to step out of the shop and sit in the classroom for the rest of the time so that I could get my asthma back under control, as I couldn't stop coughing and I had red marks on the side of my face from when she took my mask, and the elastic straps had snapped on my face. Now, if I have to go near her class, I make sure I'm not alone, as I'm a little nervous she'd try something and I'm really bad at confrontation. Okay, update. Everyone's telling me to go to the police or get her in trouble. I really didn't want to go to the police as I get really anxious and I don't like confrontation. One of my friends in my class did go to the principal for me since I said I didn't want to go. He's looking into it right now and she's in some hot water. Okay, second update. She's officially been fired and she's in trouble with the police. They want me to go into a trial and give my piece, but I'm a little nervous about going. I really don't like confrontation. As a note from the narrator, I did in fact dig through the internet and find the trial that our author had to go to. And get this, this wasn't the only time that our poor author had to go to court because some awful parent of a prospective student had physically attacked her in the class. So first of all, let's state clearly for the people in the back, in no way was our author the jerk. How did this lady have a heavily asthmatic son, and at the same time never in her life have encountered an inhaler before? She thought it was, illegal substances? Crazy. Now, onto the trial of this woman, and let me reassure you that as insane as she seemed up until this point, just wait, you ain't seen nothing yet. I wasn't sure how to put the trial into words because it was a lot, and I really hated being involved with it. I hate blowing things out of proportion, so the fact that I had to go to court because not one but two different parents had attacked me in class was terrible. I'm just going to try and keep it short and simple because just thinking about it makes my chest hurt. I'll just mention the interesting parts. Also, my parents took care of a lot of it since I didn't know what was going on, so I don't know too many details about what happened outside of the court. So, here is the story of the trial of the entitled mum. We got into the courtroom and I remember feeling sick to my stomach just looking around. The only thing that I could see was the entitled mum and her kid with their lawyer. I also saw the dad, who sat in the stands behind them, looking like he wished he could just disappear, and two girls, who I think were the kid's sisters, I don't know, sitting next to the dad. My parents were with me and we had our lawyer. He was pretty nice actually, and even though he was serious, he kept telling me it was going to be okay. We sat down and everything got started. The whole incident was reiterated. I could already feel my stomach turning, and I sort of tried to block out a lot of it. My teacher had volunteered to come in as a witness, and during his segment, he told what he saw. He talked about how he saw this lady go up to me and start talking to me. He never heard what she said and assumed she was just asking me questions about the class, but once he saw her grab my mask, he stopped what he was doing to come out and get her off me. He heard the lads talking back to her and wanted to make sure she wasn't going to do anything to them as well. Of course, at this point, the lady jumped up and loudly started to make up a story about how she thought I was suffocating under the mask and how she had tore it off to try and save me. Her lawyer tried to shut her up and make her sit back down, but the judge did that on his own. My teacher was the only witness that they brought in. My classmates could have been brought in, but since most of them were under 18, the class consisted of seniors and juniors between 16 to 18 years old, their parents didn't want them involved, which was fine by me. I didn't want them involved either. Short and simple, remember? Well, the charges were brought up as assault and lying in court. She didn't deny grabbing my mask, she just lied about the reasons up until now. She was going to get a couple of months in jail and a year of probation with a bunch of fines, when she did the dumbest thing she could think of. She heard her charges, stood up from her seat, went up to a bailiff and slapped him across the face. She then went on this huge tangent about how this was such bullcrap and how it didn't matter anyway and how I deserved it for being such a little working girl and throwing myself at all of these young men and that I wasn't going to go anywhere in such a career and hoped that what she did taught me a lesson. So she was taken away for a longer sentence. You know what? I'm sorry that our author had to go through the indignity of going through what was a very stressful and disruptive series of events leading up to the trial, but can I just say, absolutely freaking vindicated. There must have been a part of your brain wondering what this lady and her lawyer would concoct, and the possibility that maybe they'd fight back and get off scot-free whilst subtly making your life a living hell at your school. So although these things are never comfortable to watch, it must have been in a way a huge relief to watch her go down like a lead-filled, screaming, shrieking sexist balloon in court. How did this woman become a teacher? There's just such a baffling lack of social decorum on display here, and for that matter, a complete absence of any self-preservation. Let me restate. This woman was teaching classes for a living, complete with her tendency to fly into shrieking violent rages. She probably should have been removed a lot sooner, and I'm surprised she wasn't in court earlier as well. It's a fitting end, and here's hoping that she learns her lesson. I hired a dog walker who turned out to be a junkie that trashed my house. So I got even. This happened to my sister. She moved up to South Carolina from Florida about a year ago, but she still visits us periodically. We're a big and close family. Shortly after Thanksgiving, she flew down with her husband and son for one such visit. She has 3 geriatric dogs, so she got a house and dog sitter. My sister went through the basics of how they can only be fed at certain times. They get let out at certain times, they need to be in their crates from X hour to Z hour, and most importantly, they don't get treats. They get vitamins in the place of treats, but those vitamins have to be given only twice a day. No people food, very strict diets. They're all happy and healthy, but only because my sister is so strict with their regime. This lady she got to watch her dogs had stellar reviews on the site she was found through. She was a stay-at-home mum who does this as a side gig for extra cash. I feel like I could end it here and you'd all correctly guess where this is going. My sister left for Florida for a week, and the first 5 days everything was going well. The dog sitter texts my sister regularly or video calls, and she shows pictures and gives her regular updates of when she comes and goes to my sister's house. My sister has just bought that house, by the way. She's been working her butt off to finally be able to afford it. She puts so much into making that a nice home for her family. My sister has some health problems herself. She's got a ton of prescription medication in her medicine cabinet. She bought enough for the week, but left the rest at home. Stuff for epilepsy, asthma, and allergies. But she's also got a ton of painkillers from when she had my nephew not that long ago. She's paranoid about becoming addicted, so she kept the pills for safety, but never used them. It's a full bottle. On top of that, she's been a collector of rare beer for about 15 years now. Beer that's not even sold anymore because they were promotional from microbreweries. Beer she can't get anymore because she doesn't live in Florida. Those bottles she keeps mostly as decoration in her kitchen. On the 6th day of her vacation, the dog sitter stops all communication altogether. My sister texts, calls, emails, nothing. Radio silence. She's got a bad feeling but doesn't want to kill the mood because she doesn't get to see her family that much anymore. On day 7, she gets on a late flight back to South Carolina. The plane gets there at around 2 in the morning and they drive an hour to their rural town. They get home and the front door is wide open. The lawn looks like someone in a truck just tried to go drifting over the grass and tree before vacating the premises super quick. By the way, the dog sitter happened to drive a big truck. My sister goes to handle my nephew who was groggy and screaming. It had been a rough day. She was thinking the worst, that someone robbed the house while this poor lady was there. My sister's husband goes inside to survey the damages. It's all clear. My sister and the nephew go inside too. The back door is wide open. The couch looks like it's exploded. The rug in the living room and the couch and pretty much every square foot on the bottom floor is covered in the kind of number 1 and number 2 that can only be made from 3 geriatric furry buttholes. The dogs, thankfully, were still in the backyard, but they were shivering and filthy. There were broken beer bottles everywhere. Some of them have been stuffed deep in the trash to hide the evidence. Some have been refilled with water and put back with their tops precariously situated on top, so they might look like they haven't been touched. 82 bottles, each growler-sized, which is roughly 64 ounces. All gone. The medicine cabinet is like one of those western ghost towns with a tumbleweed bouncing through. My sister is already thinking that this dog sitter threw herself a party. No way in heck could someone 5'6" and 170 pounds drink that much beer and take that many pills and not be dead. My sister called the cops, obviously. The police get there to figure this must be a break-in. They take a bunch of pictures, take an account of all the bottles and substances that were missing. My sister cleans what she can, but gets to sleep because thankfully the upstairs hasn't been touched. One day later, the police find the dog sitter. My sister has assumed that she's dead and abducted, so the police were looking for her and her car. They found the truck run off the side of a highway, with this lady about 2 miles up, tweaking out of her fricking mind, walking alongside the road, screaming at nothing. They take her in for whatever charges were appropriate, I don't know. Her husband bails her out and picks her up. According to her husband, this has happened before. The dog sitter has a substance and booze problem. At first, she was messaging my sister, super apologetic, saying she'll reimburse her and please don't press charges. My sister quotes her the price of the rug, new couch, and vet bills because her dogs had somehow gained access to 9 containers of doggy vitamins, and one of them was having liver failure. The dog is fine now, but she's an old Yorkie, so who knows. Also, my sister buys in bulk from a wholesaler, hence the 9 containers. The total of damages was somewhere around $800. My sister didn't bother with the beers, the meds, the lawn, or cleaning the house. She could have. Heck, I would have. On top of that, my sister demanded the dog sitter never dog sit again, and she had to refund my sister for her dog sitting. My sister works in advertising. I won't say what kind, but basically if she saw or sees the dog sitter advertising herself as a dog sitter ever again, she has the means to drag this lady until all she sees is mud for the rest of her life. The dog sitter insists she's going to pay it back, but that my sister has to wait until they get their taxes back. Okay, so my sister waits. Late February, and she texts the dog sitter asking where her money is. The dog sitter immediately starts saying how she didn't do anything wrong. My sister is a bad dog owner and her dogs are miserable, and that clearly all of the stuff my sister says that the dog sitter did was never done. As an aside, my sister has all of the old texts of the dog sitter admitting to all of it. This goes on for a while. Eventually, the dog sitter starts saying how, as a courtesy, she has a friend who owns a furniture store, she'll give my sister a credit of $200 for a new couch. And she has an old rug she doesn't want anymore that my sister can have. What? She paid my sister about $500, but insists she'll get the coupon to my sister soon. March goes by, nothing. Around March 20th, my sister marches her happy butt to the small claims court and files. Then she snaps pictures of everything. Then she sends the dog sitter the message. As a courtesy, I'm letting you know that I just filed this at the small claims court. Then the fun starts. This lady goes off on my sister. She says she's going to sue for slander and undue distress and harassment, and many other things beside that. My sister saves all of it, including the fun bits, where the dog sitter threatens her family and calls her the C word 20 dozen times. One fine Tuesday, shortly after this, was the court date. Things move fast in a small town, I don't know. This lady shows up looking like she just got run through by a garbage disposal. She then gives the judge her sob story, talking about how she did nothing but give my sister and her animals the best care and that my sister is making all of this up. Yep, my sister has the original cop with her. She's got pictures of all the damage, the bottles, proof that she was out of town, police reports of both the break-in, as well as the dog sitter's DWI the following day. The dog sitter tries to spin it with that one law about how you can't serve alcohol to a known alcoholic. That obviously gets thrown right the frick out. The dog sitter then tries to appeal to the judge and my sister's sense of humanity. She tells them how her husband just left her and is suing her for full custody. Good. And that if she can't dog sit, then how is she supposed to support herself or ever get her kids back? Tough cookies, I say. The judge takes my sister's side for obvious reasons, come the frick on. Dog sitter is homeless now, living with her parents. She can't see her kids, who by the way don't want to see her. Apparently she was a drunk who ran her hubby's credit all the way down and was awful to her kids. And because of her heavy alcohol use, one of her kids has fetal alcohol syndrome. The dog sitter has 60 days to pay the remaining $300 or she faces jail time. I don't know how much time, sorry. Her husband filed for divorce already. Oh, and she lost her license thanks to that DWI. As a former addict myself and someone who's been through a DWI, I want to sympathize. That's a lot of stuff to go through. My sister did give her chance after chance, but at some point, you have to take responsibility for your actions. It really seems like this lady has just been using her husband as a crutch while she tries to get better, only to backslide hard. It's rough, I know. I hope she gets the help she needs. My sister's dogs are doing well. She got a replacement couch on Amazon for about $75 and a nice fluffy rug for even less. The dog sitter eventually coughed up that coupon. It didn't even work. It was for something like 20% off with a purchase of $500 or more, so, no thanks. In short, world's worst dog sitter trashes my sister's house after going on a bender. Claims she didn't do that while also promising to pay for the damages, and never pays. Gets taken to court, loses her home, job, kids, and marriage. Yeah, I'm glad that the author left in all of the disclaimers about the sitter's addiction because that is a really rough deal and it seems like her wild bender was probably another load thrown on top of a person who was clearly struggling with a lot. But as they said, personal accountability has to be a thing here. And this lady really did just try to run and deny despite the mountains of evidence against her. Her habits were also damaging a lot more people around her than the sister of the author. Her poor kids for one. Don't drink while pregnant, folks. So yeah, I feel bad for the lady, but she more than had all of this coming to her. She can thank her lucky stars that on balance, the woman whose house and pets she jeopardized was actually pretty merciful. Going back through the story, I count about $800 in payments made to settle all of the damages caused, as well as that useless freaking voucher. For a ruined lawn, couch, house, and vet bills on 3 dogs, as far as the narrator can tell, that would nowhere near cover all the damages. Then again, I guess that adding more money to the sum she was being fined would only be ensuring that the woman went to prison and that her client got none of the rest of the money. This is why we have judges, I guess. Worst dog sitter / parent ever. I hope staying with her parents can help her recover a bit. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Greedy landlord refused to return deposit for renovated apartment. So this happened around 4 years ago, and I haven't told anyone about it out of a fear of someone linking my username to me in real life. At the beginning of my junior year in college, I moved out of my parents' house and into a quadplex, which is an old house turned into 4 apartments. My parents weren't helping me out and I had a minimum wage job, so the apartment was the best I could do. It was in the middle of an old downtown neighborhood, and this house was originally built in 1906. The wooden floors had large slopes, the walls were cigarette yellow, the large sliding door in the middle of the place was off the hinges. The drop ceiling in the kitchen was missing, and the ceiling in the bathroom had one tile completely taken over by black mold. And that's not all. The kitchen had no cabinets, there was a bird's nest somewhere, I never found it. The back door had a large gap at the bottom, and 2 complete holes from carpenter bees. The toilet had a permanent black ring, there was no central air or heating, and if you plugged in too many appliances at once, the breaker would blow. It got so cold some nights that the water in my glass would freeze into a solid ice cube. To top all of that off, the lady above me was a hoarder and had more than 20 cats. There was a major flea infestation that had spilled over into my apartment. The landlord was pretty upfront about everything. He didn't really care about the state of the apartment and priced it really low to get someone like me who'd deal with it. I was a kid and it was my first place, so I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was just grateful to have shelter. So I moved in and got permission to renovate the place with expenses being reimbursed. I cleaned and painted the walls, fixed the 15-foot sliding door, replaced the drop ceiling. The black mold was really disgusting. Flea-bombed the whole place twice, fixed the bathroom up as best as I could, replaced the back door, sealed all of the holes everywhere, replaced the outlets, the whole 9 yards. It went from being a miserable pile of trash to a fairly livable apartment. After about 11 months, I decided I couldn't deal with the intense winter nights and made a deal with my landlord to find replacement tenants to move in, since I'd signed a 12-month lease. I found a nice couple who really liked the place, and the landlord allowed them to take over the lease. This is where crap hit the fan. When I asked for my $400 deposit back, the landlord straight up refused. He said that because I was a couple of days late on paying rent a few months ago, that my deposit had covered the late fee charges. There was never any agreement about late fees, and he had never told me there was a problem when I'd let him know that the rent might be a little bit late. I was furious. All of the hard work I'd put into this place, just to be told that I wouldn't even be getting my deposit back? We went back and forth for a few minutes before I said to him, "You don't want me living in this place for another week knowing that I won't be getting my deposit back." He responded by letting me know that he has recent pictures of the apartment that show the current state of it, and that if I damaged anything, he'd be taking me to court and making sure there was an eviction on my rental record. He also thanked me for texting him so he could have proof in court when he sued me. Now, time for the revenge. I wanted to destroy the place like he anticipated, but I didn't want to tarnish my rental history so early on in my life. I was also afraid of being sued, even though now I know it's illegal to not return a renter's deposit for the reasons he had. So I brainstormed for a bit and decided that since he had pictures, I had to do something that you can't see. I went to the freezer and pulled out a giant bag of tilapia that I'd bought from Costco. I cut all 15 of them into about 5 pieces each, and went through the apartment and placed the fish in the ceiling, behind the wall sockets, behind the light switch covers, and in the unused floor vents. At the top of the closet. I even undid all of the doorknobs and placed fish inside of them. I then got my cat's litter box and brought in the bag of cat poop that I'd just thrown out, and dumped it evenly into the floor vents. I then got black construction paper and placed it evenly on top of the litter to disguise it so you couldn't tell. I moved out the very next day and got into a much better apartment. A week later, I went to drop off the keys in the mailbox, but curiosity got the better of me and I wanted to see my masterpiece. I opened the door and was greeted by a giant wave of something I could only describe as the most foul smell that has ever assaulted my nasal cavity. I quickly closed the door back, dropped the keys in the mailbox, and left. A few weeks later, the landlord came to my new apartment and was banging hard on my door. "Who the hell do you think you are? You think this is over, smartass?" And with a giant smile, I said, "Looks like it," and closed the door on his face. It still makes me smile when I think about it. I feel bad for the couple who moved in afterwards. I drove by twice that year and saw that they were still there. I recognized their car. In short, the landlord screwed me out of my deposit even though I fixed up his trashy apartment. Turned my newly renovated apartment into a fish fillet. Am I the jerk? Oh, I can taste the smell in this story. As someone who has individuals in his building that have a permanent cat wee-wee smell exuding from their floor, that occasionally waft out when they don't clean properly, I can't imagine having 20 or so living in the poorly constructed floor above me. But then you decided to doom the people who were moving in after you. The people who you called a nice couple, by bringing an even worse scent directly into the space they'd be living in. That's some pretty ruthless collateral damage that you've brought on all parties there, my friend. So I'm not even sure you're a jerk vigilante. Maybe a jerk tragic villain as far as your next replacement tenants are concerned? I think next time you encounter something like this in your life, you should probably try the small claims court before you decide to just wreck the place even further for the next poor souls. A part of me also hurts when it considers that you spent all of that time and effort fixing the place up only to destroy it further. I do wonder what your sleeping arrangements were if it was getting cold enough to turn a glass of water into a block of ice overnight. Were you sleeping in a military-grade sleeping pack with 16 hot water bottles in there with you? Because that crap is just nuts, I say. Your former landlord deserves all the trouble he got, though. He sounds like a real piece of crap. And also a bit more clever than some of the other ones we read about here. Try ignoring me now. On the way home from work, I decided to get some drive-thru. The drive-thru was designed to have 2 entry lanes so 2 orders could be taken at the same time. Then the lanes merge into a single lane before it reaches the drive-thru windows. Me and another lady arrived at the same time, but I finished my order way before she did. I pulled forward to where the 2 lanes are about to merge and I waited because there's a car in front of me. A few minutes later, the lady finishes her order and arrives at the merge as well. When the car in front of her moves forward a little bit, this lady wedges her way into the merge, and I was forced to let her in first. I looked to her to give her the stink eye, but she was just looking forward, completely ignoring me, pretending that she didn't just cut me off. So here's the revenge. The single lane takes a left turn, almost like a U-turn before it reaches the window. So instead of following right behind the lady, I stayed put. I waited until her car and my car were perpendicular to each other, and then bam! I turned my lights on and she was stuck. She couldn't move forward and she just had to take my lights shining right at her. I declared victory when she put down her sun visor. I was the only one left in line and no other cars were affected in the making of this petty revenge. This is so damn petty. Still, it's annoying when you need your fix like this after a hectic day and someone takes it upon themselves just to make your evening that little bit more exasperating. I don't know that I would do it, but it is a funny story. I wonder how long our author waited with their lights on like this to inflict maximum punishment. Your order might be getting cold, mate. I admit, revenge is a dish best served cold, but that same logic doesn't apply to your Big Mac. I reckon you blind her for a second, do your best villain laugh, then proceed forward and enjoy your sweet, artery-clogging fast food. Oh, you like building codes? Well, I love building codes. My lease is ending soon and my landlord has been showing my apartment to anyone with a pulse, non-stop, for months. During a couple of these showings, my bedroom door was locked. The landlord got mad about this and told me he was coming to remove my bedroom door handle and replace it with a handle with no lock. He said city fire codes don't allow locks on interior doors, and he wanted everything up to code for the new tenants. I responded that getting everything up to code was a great idea. I offered to schedule an inspection from the city so that they could get all of their maintenance done at once and really be sure things were ready for the new tenants. Best to do the whole building. I think I saw signs of rodents in the basement. Suddenly, building codes weren't so important to him. My bedroom door is now locked during all the showings. Update, just after I posted this, my story got featured on Newsweek. Guys, look, we're famous! A huge thank you to them for giving me something perfect to tape to the apartment door before showings. Bluff called. Point goes to the tenant. I think getting onto a fairly well-known publication was your best revenge, though. The narrator did in fact check the article in question, and there weren't any details of the apartment block disclosed, so the landlord honestly got off pretty light. We'll call this about as good a victory as can be expected from everyone. Although it sounds like maybe the author should file a report with City Hall or something against the building to make the landlord take everything else up to code. Rude mechanic belittles me, but it turns out my new best friend is his boss's boss. Okay, so in January 2018, my best friend, his girlfriend and I all went out. We took my car, but I got drunk, so my best friend drove us home. As we were approaching a roundabout, a driver from a side street pulled out in front of us, then slammed on their brakes, causing my best friend to swerve and hit the concrete median with both drivers' side tires. We parked the car in a parking lot and Ubered home. Next day, I had the car towed to my personal mechanic's shop. The insurance guy assesses the damage and my mechanic gets to work. He does everything he thought it needed, put it on the alignment rack, found out that the engine cradle had been bent in the impact and it needed a new one. Now, he didn't have the capability to do this, so they sent my car to a different company. Let's just call that one ABC Repair. ABC Repair outsourced the engine cradle replacement to what we'll call the Dillweed Shop, aka DS. The car goes to the new shop and takes forever because the first cradle they got was bent, so they had to order another one from California. The guy ordered the wrong parts originally. The dude gets the cradle in on the day my rental coverage expires. As a single dad, I needed my car. Also, this whole time, the manager of ABC Repair Shop was not keeping me up to date on any of this. They were dodging my calls, and anytime I did get him, he was rude to me. So the guy busts rear to get it in that day, test drove and returned it to ABC Repair right before closing time, where I was waiting to pick it up. DS gave it a clean bill of health and handed over the keys. And here's where the rude crap really begins. So the minute I left ABC shop that night, there was just something wrong with the car. Since I have a bit of auto mechanic experience, I assumed it was a wheel bearing. Next morning, I call my insurance adjuster who tells me to take it back to DS and see what's up. So I call him up and say, "Hi, it's the dude with the engine cradle job. I think there's something wrong with one of the bearings." And he says, "Yeah, I knew about that." So why did you give it a clean bill of health?" "I was being rushed to return it, so I just said it was fine. It wasn't critical, so what's the big deal?" Okay. Well, this needs to be fixed. Are you sure you know exactly what's wrong?" 100%, right rear wheel bearing." Okay. I'll call adjuster and get it approved for repair. I have no more rental coverage, but I'm going out of town this weekend, and I won't need my car Thursday through Sunday, so I can drop it off then. Does that work? Sure, no problem. See you Thursday morning. DS orders the bearing with insurance approval, and all is well. I go in Thursday morning to drop off the car, and the conversation goes roughly as follows. I say, "Hey there, here's the keys. Now, if it's not actually what you think it is, or there's more, please call me right away. I'll call the insurance adjuster and get it approved, since this is the only time I don't need my car for transporting my child." No worries, I'm positive it's what I think it is, but if not, I'll call. I head out of town, have a great weekend, and there's no call from DS. Monday morning comes around, and I'm about to pick up my car when I get a phone call from my adjuster. He tells me he just got off the phone with DS and he was informed that no work was done on my car all weekend. I was livid. I asked why, and the insurance adjuster said he didn't know and to head down there and talk to the guy myself. So I did that. I walked into the shop and dinged the bell. He walked into the office and said, "Can I help you?" as if he didn't even know who I was. The following conversation took place. "Yeah, my insurance guy tells me that you didn't touch my car. What the heck happened?" "Well, it was the right front, not right rear bearing like I thought, so I couldn't do work since the right front wasn't approved." "But I asked you to call me if it wasn't what you thought it was, and you said you would. Why didn't you call?" "Well, who's paying for this, you or your insurance?" "That doesn't matter. I asked you to call so I could get it approved while I was out of town. Why didn't you call me?" "I didn't have to answer to you. It wasn't the approved work. I didn't do it. End of story." "Why didn't you call? I could have gotten it approved like I said before I left for out of town." DS turns around, grabs my key off the counter behind him, hands them to me and says, "Take your keys, take your car, I'm done dealing with you." I walked out, angry, and I went across the street to his manager's office and asked to speak to the manager. They were on vacation until Wednesday. I left my number and asked the manager to call me. In the meantime, I get car to the original mechanic who starts bearing repairs on all 4 tires, approved by insurance as they were sorry for the DS shop experience. He also noticed that the Dillweed shop used the wrong strut in my car when he replaced the engine cradle, and that they didn't put the rivets back in the plastic wheel well liner, causing the tire to burn a hole through it, which insurance approved, replacing both with the correct parts. The manager finally calls me at 4:45 p.m. on Wednesday after apparently being busy all day doing payroll. I say, "So do you know anything about why I'm calling you?" No clue. What's going on?" I begin to explain what happened when I returned from out of town, and then add that the strut was wrong and the liner was ruined. He interrupts me. "He couldn't have ruined the liner by replacing the cradle." "Oh, so you do know who I am and what actually happened." I'd never mentioned the engine cradle up until that point in the call. "Well, I'll apologize for wasting your time, but I don't know what else you want me to do. Sorry." And he just hangs up. So here was my revenge. You remember that trip out of town? Well, on my return trip, I was bumped off my original flight, then bumped from that flight to the one that finally took me home. I got on the plane, found my seat, put in my headphones, and started to settle in. Now, mind you, I was out of town for a party, and I was wearing a themed onesie. A gentleman in a business suit sits down next to me. I'm naturally an outgoing person, so I strike up a conversation. "Hi, are you going to destination for business or pleasure?" He says, "Business." "All right, what do you do?" "I'm the regional vice president for ABC Repair Company." My eyes got huge. It was destiny. So I begin to tell him my current experience up to me leaving for out of town. The a-hole manager at his shop to the DS jerk they were subletting business to. The vice president was taking notes of my entire story. I swear his jaw was on the tray table. He was furious. He gave me his personal cell and email and told me he'd be having a talk with the manager. He also had his company pay for 5 more days for rental car since they ordered a used cradle and not a new one, which the a-hole manager decided and didn't even ask my adjuster or me, which wasted 5 days. The next afternoon, after I picked up my car and had that experience, I got a call from VP. He wanted to make sure that my car was fixed, and that he also found out there were more complaints about his manager who'd treated me so poorly. The manager was hiding the complaints and they never reached corporate, so he was fired. I then told him about my experience that morning with the guy not doing any work on the car while I was gone. That made him angry too. He said he'd be in touch. After I talked to the DS manager on Wednesday, I called VP back and told him what happened. He said thank you for the information and then hung up. About a month later, I had a question for VP not related to any of this, so I called him up, and I learned that they'd stopped giving work to the Dillweed shop and when the owner of Dillweed Shop found out why, he had fired both the DS mechanic and the DS manager. So that's my story, I hope you all enjoyed. Moral, don't be a D-bag. Be honest and you won't get bit by karma. In short, accident in my car, has to go to a shop I don't know instead of my mechanic because of the kind of damage. The new shop was super rude, I struck gold on the flight home, and 3 rude people end up getting fired. Am I the jerk? Is this the first story I've read where we've read from the perspective of one of the individuals demanding to speak to the manager? And honestly, in this one case, the demands seemed pretty well-founded. They continually gave you subpar service and just stuck their hands over their ears when you pointed out the huge shortcomings in their service. You don't have to pretend that you like your job all the time, folks, but if you behave like this, you at least don't get to make a surprised Pikachu face when you're eventually canned. I have to say that your insurance seems quicker and more effective than literally any company that I've ever worked with, so props to you for that. And even with all their help, you needed to go directly over everyone's head to the VP of the ABC repair company to get basic accountability from their associated shops. I wonder what was in it for the manager who was covering up the mechanic's screw-ups. Were they friends, or could he just really not be bothered finding a replacement? I guess we'll never know. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Enjoy your fiery trip to the bathroom. My friend told me this story a few days ago, and I just got around to typing it up here. See, he works at a Thai restaurant in a certain city in Asia. Southeast Asia, to be precise. One day while he was on his shift, a customer came and sat at the table. My friend was a waiter, so he served him and took his order. All should be fine, except the customer was very rude and entitled. He had ordered a few dishes, and one was pad thai, which he wanted spicy. My friend warned him that it was already spicy, but he insisted and said, "I ordered it so I can take the heat, you frickin' idiot." Of course, my friend kept his cool and put on his customer service smile and took the order to the point of service system. In the description from the pad thai, he put extra spicy 17 times, and a little note for the kitchen which read, "Make him regret being born." A few minutes when all of his food was done, my friend happily served him his food, which the customer greets by saying, "It's about time, you were so slow, work faster," which my friend just smiled at him for. 10 minutes into his meal, he ordered a few glasses of iced water, but the heat was still burning inside his mouth, to which my friend held a grin when he passed by his table. He didn't finish his food, got up, paid, and ran out the door, while my friend said, "Have a nice day" to him as he bolted out. Too far? Am I the jerk? I wonder if he tipped. I'm just kidding, he almost certainly didn't. Not the jerk. This guy effed around and found out. You make one very specific request and insult your waitstaff? They could just find a way to honor the letter but not the spirit of the law. Enjoy your flaming butthole, jerk customer. Also, color the narrator surprised that pad thai is a spicy dish? I've eaten it a whole bunch, including in Thailand, and I just kind of assumed it wasn't that spicy. So either my spice tolerance is really good, or the cooks were automatically white spicing it when they saw me come into every place ever. The amount of other Southeast Asian dishes I've had that were hot as heck would suggest the latter. Moral of the story, guys, do not mess with hospitality workers. Cheat on me and no one goes on vacation. My ex and I used to go to a Cancun resort every year with a bunch of our mutual friends. I found out that my ex was cheating on me when I accidentally got a flight confirmation email that he had booked tickets for himself and the other girl. It was rough. I tried to have a civil breakup, but he refused to pay me for the Cancun vacation that I'd already prepaid for. I tried to get my money back, but he refused. After our breakup, it took several weeks to find a new place to live and move my things out of his house. On the last trip to his house, I asked him one last time for the money, and he again refused. So I accidentally packed his current passport in my last box of things and left my expired passport in its place. Since he had already booked the tickets, he apparently didn't check the passport until he was at the airport, and was denied the international flight because he didn't have a current passport. I never did get the money, but I did get immense satisfaction that he didn't get to go on vacation with this woman. Update, I gave the passport back a couple of weeks later when I discovered it in a box of things to unpack. So weird, right? He asked for a refund for the flights, and I told him I'd be happy to if he refunded me for the resort, which was much more expensive. Surprisingly, he declined. Yeah, I'm all in favor of amicable breakups, even when they've behaved awfully up until that point. Because why commit too much energy to hating on someone? However, when they don't even have the human decency to pay you back for something like this that you paid for him to go on, and that he still intended to enjoy anyway? Goodwill expired, motherfricker. And then he has the nerve to ask for his money back. Yeah, nah, get screwed, you absolute jerk. Being cold enough to just switch your mistress in with the person you cheated with on a romantic getaway that the former partner paid for is just such a clear way of demonstrating that he had zero consideration for your feelings. So why on earth would one do anything for him? The very least he could have done was paid you back for the cost of the resort that he was using. I don't work here, but I want to. I'm a server at a local family-owned hotel, which is renowned in our community for its service and food. Just yesterday, this happened to me. I was one of 2 staff serving for a wake, a celebration for a person's life held after their funeral. This was an easy job. All we had to do was go around and pick up trash while occasionally switching out a bowl of salad dressing for a full one, and as such, there were long periods without anything to do. I was standing by the door during one such period, keeping a lookout for anything that needed my help, and telling the occasional guest where the bathroom or bar was. Then comes up this little girl, only about 8 or 9, holding the tongs backwards so that she can't actually grab anything from the food tray. I came up beside her and gently asked if she needs any help, to which she happily agrees. I grab a plate and then she told me what she wanted as I served her food. She thanked me and went on her way. Cut forward about an hour and I've been away from the party doing side work behind the house. I go back in to look for any trash to pick up, which eventually leads me to the drink table. And what do I see when I get there? That same little girl I helped and her friend running up to me with big bright smiles on their faces. We've been serving everyone drinks and we're getting tips too. I stopped working at that point. I didn't need to. They and the 2 kids they later roped in had it all covered. Instead, I spent the rest of the time chatting with them, giving them pointers and telling them about my job. The little girl even said that she wanted to be a server like me one day. Her friend wanted to be a lawyer. Eventually, the adults had to shut them down, saying that they were making a mess. I went back to cleaning, and they eventually left, but not before coming to find me and giving me the $3.33 in change that they'd collected. They told me I deserved it for working so hard. I hardly worked because of you little squirts. To little Ella and Christian, I truly hope that you find the same joy and fulfillment in your future careers that people like you bring me in mine. Honestly, awesome kids. Maybe you set them off on a long and fulfilling catering career. I think it would contribute to a very strange mood at a wake to see 2 small children with massive grins plastered on their faces, charging people for lemonades. Depending on the good nature of the rest of the family, it would either be a mood lifter or seen as kind of inappropriate. On the whole, as someone who thinks that whenever possible these festivities should be a celebration of someone's life, I do approve. I hope they weren't serving alcoholic bevies, though. I feel like you could get into all sorts of trouble for letting them help out with those. I don't know if we can even call the adults who stopped the kids jerks. Their hearts were probably in the right place as well, even if it was up to the restaurant staff to say if they were making too much of a mess. Entitled mother tries to ban me from a public library. It was the summer of 2016. Me, my little sister, and my cool cousin were bored as hell. So we decided to go to the public library. It's not that far. We could reach there in 5 minutes on foot. The library is my favorite place. It had everything. Novels, comics, you name it. But before we read, we need to write our name at the front desk. The form had the records of books that you read, and you need a membership card for that. We were reading books, my cousin was reading something about science, little sister something about space, and me, Harry Potter books. We're reading in the special room. This room is only for special members, and we had this membership for 3 months. The room is awesome, with comfortable seats and bunches of board games to play. And then in come the entitled mother and her awful kid. The mother is heading to the special room, and I was like, oh god, oh frick, in my head. She had the Karen haircut, and it scares me. She gets inside and shouted, not so loud, "Get out!" Me and the others were absolutely shocked. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. Why? What did we do? Just get out, you nerd. You see, the room isn't that big, and the seats only fit 4 people. And there's a play area behind the seats where you can play the board games. I said to her, what if we don't leave? She huffed and headed to the register counter. She was complaining about us to the librarian. Then this lady and the librarian came to us. The librarian said, "I've got a complaint from this lady that you were harassing her to not get in, and said that if she got in, you'd beat her up. Is this true?" My little sister protested, "What? No." My cousin was just, "What?" And I said, "No, that's not true at all. She was shouting at us to get out." The librarian turned to the lady. "Is this true?" No, they're lying." The librarian sighed. "Okay, can all of you get out so we can solve this problem?" So we all trailed out. The librarian points at the lady first. "So, what happened?" And she tells a bunch of BS and said that we were threatening her. The librarian turned to us. "Okay, what about all of you? What happened?" I said, "This lady came into the room and shouted at us to get out, and..." The kid interrupts me. "Mom, can we get in?" "Yes, let's go." And they just walk into the room. The librarian didn't do crap. But she asks us, "Can you continue?" And I told her everything. "Okay, I'll check the CCTV first." The entitled mother was smirking at us from the room. I smirk at her too. She doesn't care and lets her kids play. After 3 minutes, the librarian goes to the room. "Mom, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "What? Why?" "What you said was false. I've checked the CCTV and what the kids says is true." "No, I'll not. I've paid money for this special membership, and this is how you treat me?" "Mom, please." "I'll expose this place so no one will come here again." She and her kid get out of there. The librarian apologized to us. Me and the others continued to read in the room. The librarian said that they'll both be banned for 2 months. I still go to the library to this day, and I've never seen that awful woman again. Hopefully you enjoyed this story. Well, I don't actually know what part of the world this story took place in, but regardless, I don't see what this awful woman thought she could possibly accomplish by complaining. Presumably the library was a city institution, and you'd have to have some pretty serious allegations to get them looked into. Then again, she did demonstrate a willingness to use bald-faced lies to accomplish what she wanted. So maybe she'd planned to go all out and say that the fine custodians of the Book Palace had murdered one of her immediate family in cold blood. Lucky the place has good CCTV. Color me surprised that one of these entitled parents would ever be in a library, though. Maybe she just wanted to distract her kid with the toys in that room while she looked at the movie section. As a sidebar, why do these people always claim that the other party just attacked them out of nowhere in order to get what they want? I really don't understand how they see themselves in a positive light given how they behave. Way to set an example for your young child, lady. Don't be like this, folks. My aunt gives me $500 for my $5,000 laptop. When I refuse, she steps on it with her high heels. My auntie and her 3 children came from Texas to visit us for the weekend. I wasn't happy because her oldest son, who was 19, would always pick on me when I was younger. It was the first time in 10 years that she had visited. She came into our house with her oldest son and a younger son, 12, and a younger daughter, 8. I put on my best fake smile and said hi. I told the youngest that they can go upstairs and play on my Xbox until it's supper. I sit down beside my twin brother and my mum. I do lots of video editing and Photoshop, among other projects. And Final Cut Pro X is my software of choice. I got a 15-inch MacBook Pro a few months ago because of this, as my 2013 iMac just wasn't cutting it. As everyone was talking, me and my brother were using our phones because our mum said we had to be down here to catch up with everyone. My aunt goes upstairs to see the house. I follow and offer to show her around. When she goes up there, she sees my MacBook and asks, "Whose is that?" This is how the conversation goes down. My aunt says, "Charlie, whose laptop is that?" "Oh, that's my laptop." "Can I hold it?" Sure." She holds it. "Wow, Charlie, this feels nice. Can I keep it?" Absolutely not." "I'll pay you. This is probably like $500. "This is actually a $5,000 laptop. I worked my butt off for this thing. I'm not just gonna give it to you." "Charlie, I deserve it. I haven't seen you guys in 10 years and you don't even get me a gift." "Is that my fault? I don't think so." "Well, since you won't give it to me, you shouldn't be able to use it either." This witch opened the laptop, threw it on the ground, and then stepped on it with her high heels. If we'd had carpeted floors, the laptop might have been okay, but we don't. And once she stepped on it, I knew it was done. I called my mum and dad and they came running up. My mum asks why she did it, and she literally mumbled, "Oh, because he wouldn't give it to me." She and all her children are banned from our house. I'm turning 18 in less than a week, so I'll wait until I'm officially an adult to be able to sue her for damages. Wish me luck. First update, I'm going to file a police report and hopefully sue her. Thank you to everyone who's written to me with this advice. Update 2, I've filed the report and we're going to court. Let's do this. I'm 18, so I can sue. And final update, I won the case. I showed pics and everything to the judge. My mum and dad heard the screaming, and when they came up, they saw her stepping on the laptop and took pictures. She owes me a lot of money. I'm so happy. Is your aunt permanently a 5-year-old? Does she die every once in a while and cycle all over again? My God, what kind of adult just breaks something when someone says you can't have it? This sounds like the friend you had in elementary school that you stopped being friends with very quickly after an incident like this. At least now we all have closure on what happens to some of these friends. They don't change at all and don't learn from the social isolation that their personalities usher in. What an absolute madwoman. And it sounds like the family was all too willing to take her to court over her crappy behavior. Family ties be damned. Perhaps this one visit was an attempt to mend the family ties and build bridges. And my God, did those bridges get smashed just like that laptop. If you wonder why no one ever seems to want to be friends with you, and the number of other people's possessions you've smashed is greater than 0, then you may have your answer right there. Just in case any of these friendless, disassociated relatives are listening today. On to the next story. No, our STEM project is not for your son to have. For some context, this happened 2 years ago during Halloween, when I participated in an event called the Haunted STEM Lab. If you hadn't already guessed, this was a Halloween event where we invited local parents and kids at our lab building to show what kind of STEM projects the students have been working on. So my team's project was simple. An RC motor robot where the user can use the joystick to navigate through an obstacle course. While the concept may sound simple, those who've done any form of programming or robotics work know that it's a lot to do. It took weeks of frustrating programming with 2 sets of code, one for the robot and one for the controller. We had to constantly pester the teacher and his assistant, who were both also advising more than 5 other projects each. But hey, we ended up making the robot work. On the day of the actual event, after everyone was done with their final testings, and last-minute approval from the teacher, we opened the doors to the guests. And let me tell you, young kids getting excited over seeing these projects in action is one of the sweetest and most adorable things you can see. And everyone felt pride in giving them dreams and interests in the STEM field. Everything was going great until they showed up. The entitled kid was around 6 or 7 and in a terrible Minecraft creeper costume, which I really cringed hard at. He was also very fidgety. His mother was in her mid-30s and not really paying attention except on her phone. They join one group, then proceed to go around the building. Now, I understand as a 6 to 7-year-old, this kid has probably not seen much science or tech, but his reaction was a bit annoying. As in, he screamed a lot, tried to touch everything. One of the projects was an upwards flamethrower where the platform would rotate and make a miniature fire tornado. This awful kid tried to touch said tornado. The guys who were presenting it stopped him, but he was being an idiot. He was asking silly questions like, can it fly, about everything, and his mother was occasionally looking up to see what he was getting excited about before going straight back on her phone. We were one of the last projects to be presented. From the start, we decided the kids should be allowed to use the controller to see if they can navigate through the obstacle courses we've made. Some kids didn't, and some kids did. We gave 3D printed jack-o'-lantern figures to the ones who made it. It was then the brat's turn, and he refused to listen to our directions. The robot was very sensitive to the controls, so pushing the joystick hard in any direction sent the robot speeding. The kid kept crashing the robot, getting more agitated each time, and not really letting the next kid play. While the robot didn't move fast enough to cause enough damage to whatever was around it or itself, we saw that it wasn't going anywhere, literally. We asked the kid to give the other kids a turn, and when refused, one of my teammates yanked it out of the kid's hands. He then threw a tantrum, and that's when his mother finally decided to pay attention. What is going on? Why is my darling upset? So I jump in, because he couldn't navigate his way through the obstacle course, I think, and because we took the controller away from him after he refused to give his next turn. The kid was blubbering away, I really want the prize. Then mother says, "Here, I'll do it. It should be easy." My other teammate says, "Okay, but can you wait until..." And then she walked up to the little girl who was using the controller at the moment, took it from her, and started controlling the robot herself. The girl was crying and her parents were yelling at this lady. She just waved them off. She was as bad as her son, though. She was crashing and knocking over all of the obstacles. Less than a minute into taking over the controls, she throws the controller hard on the floor. One of my teammates dives for it. "What are you doing?" "You idiots did a terrible fricking job at programming. Learn how to code." And sure, it wasn't perfect, but she'd just insulted many weeks of our work. I say, "Please, watch your language in front of the children. Also, this took us a very long time to make, and you might have just broken school property." "How dare you tell me what to do? I demand you give the robot to my son for upsetting him." "Okay, first of all, the stuff was borrowed from the school except for the Arduino board, the chip where all the programming goes into, so we can't just give it to you. Second, you might have just broken the controller and the robot wouldn't even work." She ignores the teammate who just said this. "I don't care. Give me the robot for wasting my time." My other teammate weighs in again. "No, you're scaring the other kids. Please leave." She's going ballistic and yelling incomprehensive words until my teacher pulls me aside to have campus security come to the building, while he tried to deal with the mother. She came up with bullcrap excuses of someone stealing the project from her and her kid. She even had the audacity to say that everyone should be paying to see their work. The teacher obviously knew what was going on and told her the project belonged to us and she needed to leave. That's when the security guard showed up. "I heard there was a disturbance. What's going on?" My teammate says, "Yeah, and is cut off by the mother. "Thank God, someone competent. These jerks stole our science project." My teacher says, "Actually, not only did you claim the project my students worked on was yours, but you tried to steal it." "That's because it's mine." "Then why did you throw your controller on the ground?" "Well, If you truly did work on the project, then you must know the 2 sets of 4-digit codes that link the controllers and the robot. What are they?"
1, 2, 3, 4, and ABCD.
Not even close. "Security, can you please remove her?" So the security guard, the teacher, and teammate 1 tow her while she's kicking about. Her brat actually tried to take the robot with him, which I snatched from his hands. He went to join his mother, crying. We had to turn things around to cheer up the other parents and kids, so me and the other teammate kept ourselves busy trying to make them forget. Thankfully, the joyset and chip wasn't damaged severely, so other guests still tried to complete the obstacle course. Teammate 1 came around an hour later with a bruise on his face. Turns out, while all security guard could do was remove her from the building, and that would have been the end of it, she just couldn't drop it and punched my teammate in the face. The security guard called for both backup and a city police, while the teacher was checking on my teammate. The lady tried to run for it, but the security guard quickly tackled her. When the cops arrived, she tried to play the typical victim role.
"They stole from me, assaulted me, they committed the unspeakable act
against me, among other things. But everyone was already informed of what happened and had gathered the security footage as evidence. The teacher pressed charges for theft, while teammate 2 pressed charges for assault. No one knew what happened to her or her kid as both of them were driven away in the back of the police car. The rest of the night went smoothly, but everyone was on edge. This was sort of a midterm assignment, and everyone got a passing grade. Much like the aunt from the first story, the question has to be asked. What part of her head was doing the cost-benefit analysis for this violent action? I mean, let's say you successfully attack the student and get off scot-free somehow. What have you actually gained? Is it the sweet satisfaction of punching a kid upside the head in a parking lot? And is it going to get your kid the toy that you guys want and have no idea how to operate? No? Then why do it? And the cost of this action is the risk of, at very least, a fine, and at worst, prison, right? Why do these awful people think that attacking people after they've already lost the fight is ever an advisable action? I just feel so disillusioned about there being hope for any of them when they so obviously live on different planes of reality in their heads. Just massive entitled children who've unfortunately spawned offspring to pass off their terrible examples to. Here's hoping someone who is a better role model got custody after her. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I'm in the bathroom equals I work here?
I was in the restroom of a movie theater. There were cleaning supplies near the door, so I figured they were in the process of cleaning. I just sat down and started my business on the loo. Someone started banging on the stall door, and I yelled, "Occupied," and I hear a voice saying, "I know that, get out." Okay, now I'm like, what do I do? So after I do my thing, I come out and there's this big lady glaring at me. "Finally, you took your sweet time." Yeah, I say, looking around and seeing the other stalls aren't in use. "Well, aren't you going to clean this place? It's disgusting." The bathroom was actually clean except for some stalls that had out-of-order signs on them. I was looking confused and I say, "No," and I walk over to the sink and start washing my hands. "What? How dare you? Get your lazy butt and do it." I ignore her and dry my hands. "I don't work here. I've seen you here multiple times, so don't lie to me." I was wearing an MLP t-shirt and shorts, and thinking that this lady thinks I work here? Just because I come here a lot, it doesn't mean I work here. I then walked off as an actual employee came into the clean restroom. I wasn't in the best mood, but I was keeping my cool. I was tempted to yell at her and say something rude, but I didn't. I get mad easily, but I've been keeping it under control since I graduated. So I guess we're just on a hot streak of awful people who decide that going into any situation in the most hostile, confrontative manner possible is the only way to go, right? Yeah. If that's the theme of today's video, why not run in screaming at the first visible person in the vague hope that the building you're in for the next 5 minutes of your life is slightly cleaner than before? Oh, you're not wearing a uniform? Well, that's clearly just you being a bad staff member. Stick your hands down the john and clean up those clogs. Don't make me attack you, kid. Okay, I'm sorry for getting worked up. Maybe the people who star in these stories are just reading similar narratives to get themselves so worked up. Because to be honest, after reading about 3 of these fricking lunatics in a row, I feel angry and like my temperature has risen. Well, 3 stories to go. Let's hope some of them feature basic human decency. Do I need to get a lawyer for this? I'm a manager in a shoe store and I deal with most of the returns and exchanges. Our policy is 45 days with the receipt for a return as long as they can be put back on the sales floor, or an even exchange if they're not able to be put back out. A man came in carrying a pair of shoes. No box, no receipt, and these shoes looked like absolute crap. They were a hiking kind of shoe and it looked like he'd hiked every trail in the state in them. I asked if he had a receipt and he said no. I asked him when he bought them. Sometime last year in Texas. Well, okay, it's out of the 45 days, so I can't do anything with it. Cue the customer asking what he should do. I say, buy a new pair of shoes. I can't do anything about those. The man looks livid, and I can tell he thinks that his next line should work on everyone. Do I need to get a lawyer for a pair of shoes? And I shrug. I mean, if you want to, but I'm not returning or exchanging those. Have a good one. I hate this place. Okay, well at least nobody screamed at anyone or physically attacked a bystander in this story. We'll call it a win then. Surely this kind of threat wouldn't work on anyone other than an inexperienced teen shop helper. And then once they call in the manager, what kind of adult is ever going to take this threat seriously? I mean, sure, go ahead customer, pay hundreds in initial fees only to be told that you have no leg to stand on. It doesn't affect us in the slightest, to be honest. Also, isn't the inner monologue of all staff and major distributors ever just like, I don't care if you sue the company I work for? I mean, you've got to assume that, right? I kept getting written up for my hairstyle, so I cut all of my hair off. When I was in the fire academy, the women's dress code said that hair had to be worn in a neat bun. I had layered, shoulder-length hair, so it was difficult to keep it neatly all day long. The shorter pieces would stick out of the bun or fall out around my face, and my bangs weren't long enough to pin back without using an entire bottle of hairspray. Most of my instructors were understanding and said that as long as my hair was up and my mask could seal to my face, they'd consider me to be in dress code. But there was one instructor who said there was no excuse. We're a paramilitary type of school, so dress code is extremely important. She acknowledged that it wasn't a safety issue, but told me I had to follow it anyway and that doing my best just wasn't good enough. She wrote me up 3 times and then called me in for a meeting to inform me that another write-up for the same issue would get me expelled from the program. I looked into the dress code and saw that the men's hair code was much more lenient. It just said that hair must not touch the collar of the shirt or the tops of the ears. So the night after that meeting, I went to the hair place and told the stylist to do whatever she wanted to my hair as long as it fit those requirements. She was stoked and gave me a really cute pixie cut. The next day, the same instructor tried to write me up, but since I was technically in dress code, she couldn't. The next semester, there was a man with long hair who wore it in a bun instead of cutting it, and the following semester, the dress code was rewritten to be gender neutral. Hey, eventual success after your time then. I hope you were able to appreciate it even if you couldn't benefit from reason at the time. Seems like that drill instructor was a jerk in this particular story, right? If every other authority figure in a given place says it was fine, then you really just have to be the most insufferable jerk to decide that an inconsequential dress code matters more than someone's ability to do their job. And if this was all sealed inside of a fireman's helmet, then it was no more of a risk than any other sort of hair. And if it was a darn pixie cut, any risk at all was completely removed. Maybe this drill instructor should find another outlet for her massive frustration with the state of her life. Am I the jerk for getting the money back that my husband took from our IVF treatment and gave to his friend? To start off, I want to say that my husband, a 36-year-old guy, has an old friend that he's known since high school. They're inseparable and spend the entire week together. Like, they're really, really close. My husband and I struggled with fertility issues for years. We recently started trying out IVF in hopes to get at least one child together. Note that I saved for the majority of the treatment, while my husband paid only $2,000 to $3,000. We'd saved up for another round after the huge disappointment and heartbreak from failing the first time. That's just how it goes. This time I'd put in all of the money, including my dad's inheritance, and my husband didn't pay a cent. Last week I found out that he'd secretly pulled out $7,000, we had $11,000 total, and I was completely and utterly shocked. I confronted him and he casually reminded me of how many times his best friend complained about his old junk car, and he had decided to lend him $7,000 to buy a decent one. His argument was that his friend would have done the same for him. I was beyond livid. I asked if he really thought that was okay, and he said I shouldn't worry and guaranteed his friend will pay us back in time. I lost it on him and immediately demanded his friend send the money back and threatened police involvement in case he refused. His friend immediately returned all the money, but told my husband about the police thing, and my husband came home and yelled at me, calling me unhinged and selfish. I told him I saved up some of the money and used my inheritance for this treatment, while he contributed nothing, even though we're in this together. He corrected me, saying that I'm the one with the problem, and he thought it was only fair that I make up for it by paying for the IVF myself. This hurt so badly, and I couldn't argue anymore. He went to stay with his friend while constantly shaming me for how I'd treated them both, and for the police involvement, like they stole from me or something. God, his last statement is such an awful thing to say to your partner who clearly wants to be a mother. I think the husband is definitely the jerk here. Also, his argument doesn't even make sense. He pulled out almost entirely her money to pay for his buddy to get a new car. So she has to pay for the treatment and fork the bill for Johnny McNeighbor to get a new set of wheels? Where the heck is the fairness here, husband? Yeah, your husband stole from you, sadly, and unless there are some complete apologies and behavior reversals from him, I don't think that you should be trying to have a family with that guy. I know you're both in a very rough place, but this was not okay. Wife sets a trap for cheating husband, books a hotel room using his mistress's name. This might be some second-hand revenge, as I was more of a spectator than anything else. Hope you all enjoy. This story, of course, takes place pre-corona. I'd been working as a front desk agent for about a week. It was my first time working in a hotel, so I was still learning the ropes, even though I'd previously worked as a check-in agent on a cruise line. I was working the afternoon shift and things had been pretty slow. A couple of check-ins here and there, and that's about it. It was about 7 p.m. when this lady, we'll call her Libby, comes in, and after talking things out at the valet, she makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings and she tells me that she'd like to reserve a room, but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we're not a motel, so I let her know the minimum of time that she could reserve a room would be for a full night. After asking what the price would be, $240 is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, by the way, she agrees and hands me her credit card. This is where things get weird. As soon as I ask for her ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and says that she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation and would like to make it under the name of the guy who'd be joining her later, instead. I pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room. I reassure her that only the employees would be able to see said list, and that no, the guy she was planning to meet wouldn't see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction, Libby has been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm just thinking she's here for a one-night stand and doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something like that. Which I can work with, sure, but why not just get a motel, lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asks me to make a note in the reservation so that, if at any point we need to address her by name around the guy, we wouldn't call her by her real name, and instead she gives a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point, I'm obviously bewildered, but still trying to be accommodating and trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a picture of the guy, so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key, and she heads to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in. Let's call him Jake. My coworker, who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. To be honest, at this point, I still wasn't giving the whole thing a lot more thought other than, that's a bit weird. Not even 30 minutes had passed when Jake went up to Libby, when Libby comes back down and hands me both the keys. They'd received one each. She says, "Thank you," in the most serious yet cordial way, and then walks off. Multiple thoughts went through my head as this lady was making her way to the valet. First, that was too fast even for a quickie. Second, why did she give me 2 keys? Where's Jake? And third, Libby, please tell me that you didn't murder Jake. Security is standing behind me, staring Libby down and probably having the same thought process as I am. The supervisor for security usually spends the night hanging out at the front desk anyway. My coworker and I were whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because that did not look like a lady who'd just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs and... Okay, we can breathe. He's not dead. Now, what happened next we couldn't see because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers. Like 30 passengers from an airline who had to cancel or delay a flight for whatever reason, and they'd been redirected to a hotel to stay at while they waited for the next one, however long that might be. I was so busy I just wanted to die. After all that, I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck had actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then, the worker from the valet came over and boy did he have some tea to spill. It turns out that Libby had gone as far as asking the valet to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible in. Why? Because it turns out that Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away from her husband? Well, dear reader, because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl Jake was cheating on her with. This woman somehow got her cheating husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet, sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This badass motherfricker of a woman came back downstairs after probably massacrating the heck out of this idiot boy with not a hair out of place, and calmly had the valet bring both of their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake Schmake to get his sorry butt back to the lobby so that she could extend her hand and demand their house key from him. She then got into her car and drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake the Schmake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I like to think that she had had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting to the hotel? Point is, this woman is all I aspire to be. In short, badass motherfricker of a woman tricked her cheating husband into thinking his girlfriend had booked them a night at a hotel, only for him to walk in and find her instead. What a terrific way for someone to get revenge on their absolute jerk of a spouse. If she'd come in with this at home when during their usual everyday dynamic where they were already maybe used to disliking each other and having their guards up, it might have been harder to call him out and pin him down on the specifics without him obfuscating, counterblaming, and other things that some cheating partners do. Better to ambush him in a hotel room, rock plant, eggplant at the ready, undeniably checking into the room under the name of his mistress, without a hope and a prayer at worming his way out of it. Get a full confession while he's completely laid out from shock, and then inform him that he's out of the house and take his key off him when he's outside and has just spilled the beans on all his dirty dealings. This was expert-level situation management from this lady, and while he likely had legal fallbacks he could resort to when he came back to his senses, this must have been very satisfying for her in the moment. Entitled neighbor expects my gardener to clean her garden for free. This happened recently. I live in a unit complex of about 20 units, where most of the neighbors know each other or have spoken at one point or another. One of the neighbors, Ben, has a lawnmower and mows everyone's lawns for free. This will be important for later. I've been in isolation because of COVID-19 for the past month, and I've been getting extra money from the government lately that I don't need. So I decided to put that money to good use and hire a gardener to fix up my front and back garden. The front garden is a complete mess. For the past 2 weeks, he's been coming and going to fix up my front garden in small increments, not interacting with me directly for obvious reasons. This happened yesterday when my gardener was working on my front garden. One of my neighbors, Jessica, came up to the gardener. I have security cameras outside so I can see what's going on in the driveway, and she began complimenting him on his great work. I popped my head out so I could hear what was being said, but they couldn't see me yet.
"Oh yeah, that looks really good. I think you're doing a really nice job."
She started getting overly complimentary, and I had a sneaking suspicion of what she was getting at. She said the next part, not knowing that I was around the corner and could hear everything.
"You're doing such a good job here. Do you think you could work on my garden after you're done? I don't think the lady who's hired you would mind."
I come around the corner. "Hey Jessica, what's up?" She realized she was busted.
Oh, hello. Well, I was saying what a good job your gardener has done so far. Do you think he'd mind doing my garden as well?"
I say I'm sure he wouldn't mind. It's $30 an hour or something, or $300 for the whole day.
"What? I'm not paying for it. You hired a gardener, so it's your responsibility to do my garden as well."
I hired a gardener to do my garden. It's not up to me to pay for your garden to be done at the same time.
"But Ben mows the lawn for free. Your gardener should do my backyard for free too."
Sorry, Jessica, but if you want a private gardener, you'll have to pay for it like everyone else.
"But I'm on a disability pension and I can't afford it. Clearly you can."
I'm on a disability pension too, so don't try that. I spend my money on important things, not the alcohol I see you buying all the time, so unless you're going to pay for his time, please let him get back to work. Jessica huffed and stomped off, and I haven't heard a peep from her since. But give it time, I'm sure she'll be back soon enough to get more things for free. There's one of our classic Karen disconnects right there. We both get the same free lawnmower, so now that you have a paid gardener, he should do my garden for free as well. That's how it works. Also, check out these compliments at the start. These people are never nice unless they want something. It's the same reason some of us are so cynical and wary whenever people give us compliments. They really ruin society for the genuinely nice folks out there. Good on the author for sticking up for the neighbor who might have been tricked into at least doing some work for free just out of peer pressure. Although I don't know what was going on in your garden that it was going to take multiple days to do the whole thing. Just get some of your relatives over to do your garden, Jessica, and make them lemonade and cakes or something. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Neighbor took my parking spot after I shoveled, so I poured water in his windshield. It was a cold winter day. 8 inches of snow had fallen the night before, and the wind chill made it feel as if it were in the negatives of Fahrenheit. I drive an all-wheel drive SUV, so I had no issues getting out. My wife, on the other hand, drives a Prius, which slides with the smallest amount of moisture on the road. My car was down at the time, so we had to take my wife's car. I spent 45 minutes in the freezing cold shoveling that car out so we could get to the store. We were gone for an hour, and when we came back, our neighbor had taken the spot that I'd shoveled. Our apartment complex doesn't have assigned parking, but in the winter it's understood that if you shovel a spot, it's yours. So when I saw his car in the spot I'd just shoveled, I was pretty angry. I went inside and filled 2-gallon jugs of water. Went back and poured them on his windshield. Rinse and repeat. I must have poured about 10 gallons of water on his car. Being how cold it was already freezing by the time I'd poured the last gallon on. It sat like that overnight. The next morning I got to watch as he helplessly tried to scrape all the layers of ice off his windshield. Don't take my goddamn parking spot. I'm not looking for judgment because I already know that I'm the jerk here. The point of this is to tell my particular tale of revenge. I'd say it was pretty satisfying. I find it so funny that people are writing in to tell me that I committed vandalism. No damage was done except for wasting about 5 to 10 minutes of his time. Ever hear of freezing rain? It does the same thing I did to his car. Never does any damage. This was also many years ago, and the cops haven't come to arrest me yet, so I think I'm good. Yeah, this is on the more ambiguous end of the jerk vigilante spectrum. I don't know that the guy whose car you locked into an ice cube was guilty of being a jerk as much as he was guilty of just being kind of stupid and inconsiderate. I'll admit that when I read the title I was fairly convinced that you were going to use boiling water and crack his windshield, so I'm more relieved than anything when I got to that point. I think you could have at least confirmed with the guy to his face whether it was an accident before you went to jerk Batman on him, but then again, that would probably have also given him a mega hint as to who the author of his misfortune was. So I guess it depends whether you value revenge or integrity more. I'm going to say a lot more people who watch would have gone for revenge. Late husband's estranged, awful parents are demanding access to my unborn son. I'm a 30-year-old woman who lost my husband to terminal illness last year. We'd always wanted kids, so we had some of his baby batter frozen for a later date. Sadly, he lost his battle and passed away. I'm now in a place where I feel capable mentally of taking care of a child myself, and it was a success. I'm expecting a little boy. My husband's parents somehow got wind of this and are constantly demanding that they be allowed into my son's life, as he'll be the last part of their son. The thing is, though, my husband had nothing to do with his parents. Growing up, they gave him the worst sort of upbringing, and he got out of there as soon as he could. He hadn't spoken to them in 10 years, and when it became clear that things were taking a nosedive, he made sure I knew he didn't want them at the funeral. I don't think he'd want them in our son's life at all either, so I'm trying to respect his wishes. But family and friends are telling me I should give them a chance. That perhaps they've changed and how this could be a second chance for them. Perhaps it's cruel, but I don't want my son to be a guinea pig to trial run if they're better now. Is it a jerk move to not give them the chance to prove themselves and to deny them contact with my son? My own parents have said how if the positions were reversed, it would break their hearts to be kept from the child. They've suggested supervised visits, but I'm against even that. I feel under so much stress about this as they're constantly messaging my social media and I've had to block them, and now they've even been coming to my house to try and convince me. Honestly, this is all up to you, author. It's completely your prerogative to withhold visitation rights from your dear deceased husband's parents. And I can get that the people who are saying that you should be giving them a second chance might have their hearts in the right place, but honestly, would they be okay telling that to your husband, who it sounds like he had a long, painful upbringing at their hands? If they'd been so disrespectful of your privacy as to blow up your social media and make uninvited calls on their house, despite your apparent wishes to be left alone with the decision, then perhaps that's answering the question of whether they've learned to be better and more considerate people. I'd be leaning towards enlisting the help of lawyers to keep them away, because these early signs aren't good. Am I the jerk for telling my stepmom that she can use the missing child support payments to fund my part of my dad's gift? Sorry for the wordy title. I'm an 18-year-old guy. My dad left my mum when I was 6, not because of my stepmom, and 4 years ago he met and married my stepmom, Ida. She had 3 kids from a previous marriage that my dad loved to parent instead of me. After they got together, I saw him, at best, 7 to 8 times every year, because they moved 5 hours away. A year later, he had a change of heart and demanded his 50-50 custody, which made me miserable. He built a room for me at his new house, tried to fill the missing years with new gifts, and even planned a big birthday party for my 12th. At 13, I stopped going to his place. For me, he just wasn't my dad. After he left, my mum's brother, who was only 25 at the time, took me in as one of his boys. Mum and I moved back to my grandparents' place and my uncle lived next door. He already had a kid and he was always there for me. He's my father, while my aunt is like my second mother for me, and my cousin is like the brother I never had. When I stopped going to my bio dads, my mum had to get a second job, so I used to sleep at my uncle's pretty much every day. I didn't understand why until last year, when my grandma told me my dad had stopped paying child support. Out of spite. My mum didn't have the money to take him to court. Ever since I turned 15, Father's Day is about my uncle for me. My cousin and I make him breakfast and plan a fun day with him with a small gift. But now that I'm 18, my stepmom sent me a Facebook message saying that I'm old enough to give my part for my bio dad's gift. This year, his stepkids want to give him a car, and she says that I should put in 10%, like $1,800 to $2,100. I just sent her a lol meme and said she could use my missing child support to cover it. She blocked me, and later on, one of her kids sent me a message telling me what a jerk I was. So, am I the jerk? No. Look, you want to be credited as someone's dad? Pay your damn child support. It doesn't matter if they want to see you. You don't get to take the benefits without paying the dues, man. It does sound like maybe he genuinely tried to foster a relationship with you for a while there, but you've got to respect the boundaries of your kid, and you don't get to throw a tantrum and withhold your legal obligations just because you don't like the situation. It upsets me a bit that if the author's mum could scrape together an initial sum for a lawyer, she'd be fine, because no judge would uphold what the dad was doing here. He's essentially punishing her more than anyone else for the fact that his kid doesn't want to see him after years of his own neglect. The author is not the jerk here. That title resides firmly with the man who left his mother and bailed on the responsibilities. Those tables that know the owner. For a long time, I worked for a restaurant that went by a person's name. Let's call it Clarissa's Winery. Putting her name on the building attracted a lot of bad behavior. I couldn't go a week without someone claiming they were a friend of Clarissa's in the hopes of a discount. And you'd be shocked at how many of them had been best friends since grade school. Fortunately, Clarissa was always in the restaurant, so it was never difficult to sort out which of them were full of crap. I'd light up with a huge smile and let each customer know the great news. I'm sure Clarissa would be thrilled to hear an old friend is here. I'd be happy to show you to her if you'd like to say hello. Unsurprisingly, most of them were in, quote, too much of a hurry, or they didn't want to disturb her. Only one customer ever took me up on it. She hesitantly agreed before adding, "Oh, I'm not sure she'll remember me, it's been a very long time." Enthusiastically, I led her to the back of our dining room to a tall glass case featuring a statue of an angel. Here we are, this is Clarissa. She's celebrating her 30th anniversary with us, so she's almost a local piece of history. Isn't she gorgeous? The customer and I stared at each other with poker faces for a long time before she said, "Yes, lovely. Where's your bathroom?" and hurried away. No discount for her today. Lucky for me, the owner, Josephine, was a family friend and let me get away with being a smart jerk sometimes. In short, don't claim you know the owner unless you actually know the owner's name. Haha! Of course, we get a lot of stories about these awful liars here, and it's always satisfying to see them put in their place. It's in the owner's best interest to back you up here in the long run, surely. A bajillion customers all trying to get discounts by pretending to know you isn't good for business. God, it's almost tempting to run a small place under a ridiculous name now, just so I can see people bluffing their way in, while I, the owner, make coffee. "Oh, you're a close friend of Bartholomew Flatulent III. Hold on, let me get him." Point to a picture of a cartoon man with a bare butt, letting out a terrific guff of air from his posterior. "Now get out!" Obviously, I'd probably fail in this business fairly quickly, but worth it? My grandparents think they can decide who comes to my wedding. They were in for a rude awakening. I got married last year. Hooray! But a year before that, me and my now wife settled on a venue and then started the process of whittling down guests. We had a ceremony capacity of 80. I come from quite a large family with few friends. She has a small family, but lots of friends. Mostly, we share her friend group. However, this did lead to us making a couple of rules. Only inviting family members to the day part of the wedding we'd both actually seen during our 5-year relationship. None of the random cousins or uncles who never enter our lives. No one below 16. We came to our own conclusion, rightly or wrongly, that we would rather have more adults there who were more likely to enjoy the day instead of kids who might not. Also, if we invited all the kids in the family, it would be a quarter of our capacity. So when we got engaged, my grandparents, the only ones I have left on my side, were very happy and immediately told me to invite who we wanted and to sod everyone else, do what we want. Once we made the decision regarding venue, the decision around the inviting children followed pretty much immediately after. Now, this is where the drama begins. I'm the oldest grandchild to their oldest son. They had 3 sons, my dad, and 2 uncles. My dad and his oldest brother all have kids over 16. Youngest brother, however, has 4, all under 11. This uncle and aunt tend to use my grandparents a lot for extra childcare and support, which is fine. However, it's led to this situation where they're regarded as their babies and need extra attention. And the choice we made regarding children at the ceremony led to my grandparents immediately saying they won't come to the wedding if those grandkids aren't invited. This took all of us, my parents included, by surprise, especially as we heard that the auntie and uncle affected were fine with it. However, my grandparents strong-armed them into agreeing with their position. This led to my dad having a conversation with the grandparents to try and make them see sense. I never got the details. All I know is that it ended with my dad leaving the house after telling my grandmother that the word stubborn would be set on her grave, and he's usually a very controlled individual. 2 days later, my sister, who was 21 at the time, dropped by their place to say hello. She was there chatting normally, but my grandma just cuts in and goes, "So then, what do you have to say about it all?" This took her aback, but she defended our position. My grandma argued that we were picking on them and always believed that we were better than their family. She also said she wanted a nice picture of all the grandkids together. My sister asked her how she could be choosing between the grandkids. Doesn't she love us all the same? She didn't respond for a few seconds, before eventually saying, "Well, they're younger. They're our babies." My sister left in tears. I felt terrible and responsible for the fallout. My dad talked me out of going around and having it out with them. He said leave and we'll see if they come around. Time passes and I'm delivering invites to relatives. I was also rushing to meet a friend who was very much in and out of houses. I arrived at their house and only remembered the situation as I walked in. I handed them the invite and was immediately told they would not be attending. I was stunned into silence. I told them the decision wasn't personal and all kids were welcome for the evening party. They told me it wasn't fair and it should be everyone or they won't come at all. I finally cracked and shouted at them. I state that I didn't realize my grandparents' attendance was conditional. They reply with, "How do you think this makes us feel?" I blurt back, "How do you feel? My grandparents aren't coming to my fricking wedding." They ask me to leave. I walk to the door, turn around, walk back, grab the invite, and say, "You won't be needing this then," and I leave. I haven't seen them since. On a plus note, the wedding was amazing. The additional friends we invited really made it a party atmosphere, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I've decided it was their loss, and it's something they'll have to live with. P.S. I don't really mind if no one hears this. Just writing it out after all this time has been extremely therapeutic. Am I the jerk for not inviting my grandparents? This feels like a needless conflict, and the grandparents' attitude to the issue is really strange. Like if the kids' own parents were apparently fine with it, why kick up a big fuss? Although it does sound like the parents were petrified by the heads of the family, I know that some families have this attitude to the eldest parental figures, and that you might have ratcheted up the eventual strengthening or breaking of that dynamic. It's already caused them to have upsetting confrontations with your dad and sister. Also, the reversal on your grandma's part from saying, "invite who you want and screw the rest," to then putting her foot down and shattering your chances to achieve that same goal, is a bit bloody nuts. Come on, Granny. I'm just doing what you said I should do. It's nice that you look after your younger grandkids so well, but you know they aren't really going to enjoy a wedding that much, right? Being stuck in a boring chapel? The emphasis on the photography aspect makes me wonder if she was just getting way too fixated on getting a nice pic of the grandkids for her mantelpiece. Like, fixated to a weird degree. If that's what you want, Gran, why not just call a family reunion? I think you and your partner made the right choice in sticking to your guns and sticking up for each other, and I'm glad to see that your old dad even got involved and wouldn't let his own parents dictate their terms to you. Seems like a solid family, bar a couple of slightly annoying grandparents. Hopefully they come around and apologize. Smackhead gets offended when I won't give her details about my reproductive system. I live in a small apartment building with my wife and 2 kids. There are 4 units together in a row, and it isn't a great neighborhood. This is sort of a temporary situation until we're back on our feet, but a lot of other people who live here are older and we'll just say unambitious toward life. Normally, I try to keep to myself, but we're in the middle unit, and sometimes being neighborly is a hazard. When the kids want to play outside, I sit and crochet or read in my chair outside the door. This leaves me vulnerable to Chit-chat. So the lady next door, and I crap you not, introduced herself to me as Wanda, your crazy smackhead neighbor. I don't know if this is a well-known rumor she's heard about herself, or if she was actually warning me, or what. But we're already not off to a good start with that introduction. As politely as I can, we make small talk, and she asks that question that everyone asks the gay couple. So, who's the mom? I said, we both are. No, I mean like who's the real mom? That irked me a bit, so a little more sternly I repeated, we both are. She gave me a snide look and changed tactics. Who's the dad? They don't have one. This is true both spiritually and legally. There was no hetero whoopee, so there is no legally intended father. She finally just asks, how did you get the splooge? Now, I could tell she was getting angry, but I don't really think she had the right to keep asking these kinds of personal questions. I stared at her for a long minute, mulling over which direction to take this. You know, I just wished real hard and clicked my heels. At that point, I was done with the conversation and ushered the kids inside. Just to be clear, you're not entitled to ask someone personal questions about their choice of reproduction just because it isn't obvious to you. I don't think that questions like this would even be okay with a conventional hetero couple. Like maybe friends who you know well and who've already voluntarily started talking on the topic about could be acceptable. Just don't lead with questions like that so early on in the neighborly discussions, folks. As a guy who has no wish to socialize with his neighbors at the best of times, I thoroughly sympathize with internally dying when they poke their heads out the door and start scuttling over to solve the problem of their social isolation. I think that there's more than a good chance that this comes from a place of ignorance rather than any sort of malice or homophobia. I had to reread to realize that your kids were probably within earshot while her little interrogation was going down. That's not okay, smackhead neighbor. There's a time and a place, and they're respectively in your own time and on Google. That's the best time and place to maybe find out ways your gay neighbors could conceive or adopt children. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
I want to haggle, even if you don't.
I work at a second-hand shop. A woman comes up to the registers with a massive, beautiful area rug that we just got in. It's been priced at about $100, which is high for our usual thrift store prices, but still way below retail. She doesn't have the I want to speak to your manager haircut that I can tell, mostly because her hair's been tied up in a bun. The first words out of her mouth to my coworker were,
Excuse me, is there any wiggle room on this rug?
No, I'm afraid not.
Well, the price is just too high considering there's some damage to it.
The department head would have researched the value and made adjustments. I'm afraid I can't do anything against that.
Well, I need a rug to cover some damage my kids did to our carpets, and I need it by Tuesday for a house showing. Can I speak to your manager?
Our store manager has gone home for the day and our store is closed for Labor Day. I'm afraid if you want to talk about a price adjustment, you'll just have to wait until Tuesday morning at 10 a.m.
No, I'm afraid I can't wait that long. Do you give military discounts?
Unfortunately not. Just a senior discount and that's only 10% off.
10% isn't nearly low enough. I can pay you $50.
Ma'am, we don't haggle.
Well, the price is too high. Can I just buy it now and return it?
No, we don't do refunds. You can donate it back, but you won't get any money for it.
This is ridiculous.
I'm afraid your only option is to leave a message for the store manager and come back at 10 a.m. Tuesday to see if she'll lower the price for you. And we already know that she won't lower the price.
No, I need it for Tuesday morning. That's not nearly enough time.
She huffs and moves to the side to fiddle with her phone for about 10 minutes before coming back.
All right, I'll pay your ridiculous price, but I'll need a pen and paper. I'm going to leave a message for your store manager to get a partial refund on this rug.
My coworker, smirking, says, Sure thing. The woman scribbles down her name and number and a complaining message about how the rug was too expensive and how she wants a partial refund on this rug to reduce the cost down to $50, as well as a military discount on top of the price reduction. Then she pays for the rug and stomps out. We posted the message on the store manager's office door, along with a note saying that I and my coworker told her multiple times that we don't haggle or give refunds. Since I don't work on Tuesdays, I'm almost sorry I'll have to wait to hear about the incoming Category 5 tantrum that will most likely ensue. Okay, so update. So Thursday was my first day back, and I asked my store manager what happened with this lady. Events were regaled to me as follows. My store manager came back to work to read the note. She proceeded to laugh and shake her head in disbelief at the audacity of this entitled lady before opening her office and starting up the daily shift. She also checks the security feed for the day in question. 10 a.m. on the dot, when the store opens, the phone rings. Apparently, entitled lady was not satisfied to simply leave a note or wait to be called back with an answer. Nope, she's on the phone with her spiel prepared and everything. The store manager politely listens to the whole song and dance. Amazingly, the story remained consistent, with no added details, or claims that her son's cancer-ridden puppy needs the money back for life-saving miracle cures. No, she's literally admitting again that she used the rug to hide damage to the house she showed early this morning and just wants her money back, or at least some of it. She winds down her story, "So that's why I'm hoping you can work with me on this." And the store manager says, well, no, actually, I can't. There was a beat of stunned silence. "I'm sorry. What do you mean you can't?" "I can't. We don't do refunds at this store. There have been rare occasions of an accidental overcharge which we have refunded, but it's same day only, and we don't advertise that we do it, and this lady doesn't need to know about the rare exceptions because those only happen when we are at fault." She blusters onwards, "But the rug was too expensive." "And yet you purchased the rug anyway after being told that you would not be getting any money back." "But nobody said that. Nobody told me that I couldn't return it or get a price adjustment." "Mom, you were told that multiple times." She went from 0 to 100 fury instantly. "Are you calling me a liar?" The store manager calmly says, "Mom, we have video and audio of the 20-minute-long argument you had with both of my employees. They both very clearly inform you multiple times that we don't haggle and we don't refund." There were crickets on the other end of that line. She then says, "Now, as I see it, you have a choice. Either keep the rug or donate it somewhere. Either way, we appreciate the money you generously donated to all the homeless kittens and puppies at our local animal shelter. Have a nice day." There was a click of the phone being put down. I was honestly kind of speechless at the epic beauty of this complete shutdown of this awful woman. I don't know if my manager embellished on what she said to this lady, as I'm hearing it a couple of days after the fact, but I think I'm going to pretend it's all true and hold that happy little thought in my heart for the rest of my days. You know, I can at least appreciate these bald-faced jerks rather than the ones that lie and manipulate right from the start. I don't know if this lady was actually a veteran. Her story was consistent right up until the last bit where she tried to claim that the original salespeople lied to her. And honestly, like a lot of Karens, maybe she was just sort of delusional and interpreted things the way she wanted to. She had lots of confidence and was absolutely certain that she was going to get her way right up until most of the way through that call. It kind of speaks to me less of malice and more just pig-headed stupidity. It's, as always, fascinating to see it in action. I hope that we collectively let people like this complain their way to victory as little as possible, because I'm sure there have been cases like this where Karens and Kens have got their refunds and told their friends and created a wave of future awful encounters. So, well prevented. Also, credit to your manager for that awesome final zinger. If you argue with that, then you want to take the money off the innocent little fluffy animals and condemn them back into a worse life. Don't hurt the puppies, lady. I got someone fired twice. So I've been working in advertising for about 8 years now. Back in my old agency, we hired someone new to handle digital for a couple of small-time clients, as she was new to the industry. Let's call her the evil craphead. She didn't last long as she had attitude problems and would regularly make major mistakes and repeat them. So after about 6 months, I told her that it wasn't going to work out, but that we thank her for being with us. Basically, no hard feelings. I never burned bridges, and I was still kind of junior in my middle management career. A couple of years later, I left that agency and started doing my own thing, but then settled as the head of digital at a new agency that had a small client, but one that had a big global name. Their retainer was pretty low, and I'd told the managing director that it wasn't a client worth keeping if they wouldn't increase their retainer by at least 15%, but my agency insisted that they're a good name to keep. Whatever, I didn't invest too much time into it. A few weeks later, the client hires a new digital manager, and it turns out to be the evil craphead. And she gives me this smirk in our first meeting. I'm not new in the industry, so I don't really take it too seriously, but she tries to make life hell for my employees. Constant angry emails and unrealistic expectations. But in my face, she was always nice. She'd even send me private WhatsApp messages thanking me for the good work, but then sending huge criticisms via email with her boss CC'd in. She thought that just because she's my client, I was scared or something like that. Anyway, fast forward a couple of months and she sends an email to the managing director, whom I directly report to, and says that I haven't given any care to the account and that there are too many things going wrong, that I should be adding value to the account. I tell my boss that they only pay for 2 hours per month of my time, and that I'm giving them 1 day a week, more than generous, and that she's being unreasonable with her demands. Honestly, she's kind of taking us for a ride. So my boss asks to be looped into the emails moving forward, which makes me angry, but whatever. After 3 days, he sees how ridiculous it's getting and says to me, "I've had this account for 12 years. I'm not about to let this one awful woman ruin it. Do what you can to take her down." So I comply. She didn't take into account that our contract ended in exactly 1 month from the moment I got the green light to screw her over. And if she didn't have an agency to take over the account, she would definitely be under serious scrutiny from her management. Her boss had no idea how much time I've put into the account and how much time the team has invested, so I make sure I keep timesheets, records, and rounds of feedback she's given. We had an agency review meeting 3 days before contract extension, and I present the 2019 and 20 strategy and contract with a 130% increase in the retainer. Her and her boss freak out and are like, "What? No way! How could you even present that?" And I show her boss all the emails, all the WhatsApp conversations, confirming what she wants to be delivered for the year, and saying that we won't take them on as a client if they're not willing to pay what it's worth. I even slipped in some of the nasty WhatsApps that she sent to my employees where she said at one point, "Take it up with your boss if you don't like it." My managing director started to freak out after the meeting and told me that he hadn't expected me to do that. He was so nervous that he was about to lose an account that isn't even 5% of the company's revenue. 2 days later, they ask if we'd be willing to take the same retainer for less work, as the demands made by the lady were not beneficial to the company and that they've let her go 4 months after hiring her. We agree and move on. Ideally, I think we would have ended that contract anyway, and I would have freed up more time to win new businesses. But that didn't happen. I've since quit this job, hoping to find the evil craphead somewhere else, because third time's the charm, right? Am I the jerk? I don't think that you were too evil in your actions here, other than the personal joy you felt at bringing her down, but she seemed like she was kind of enjoying being vicious herself, as well as using her time at work improperly. You just complied with her demands, kept receipts, and then when they saw the basic facts of what she'd been asking you, they decided she wasn't worth keeping on. You'd hope that she'd learn the correct lessons from this, but you never know. If you run into her a third time, I think it seems a little like persecution, but I'm not your life coach. Maybe you two will just end up getting married or something. This seems enough like the beginning of a rom-com situation that I'd believe it could end that way. I'll keep scanning your account in the future to find out if you two were ever fated to meet again. Watch this space, folks.
I told my cousin, "You only got pregnant to trap a man into staying with you." And it didn't go over well. Hey guys, this is my story from 7 years ago. It happened around the time when I first moved to Vegas. I have a cousin who has 7 kids, and since I'd just moved, I hadn't seen them since the youngest was in diapers. Now, this cousin also has a sister who has exactly 1 child. For that 1 kid, she gets food stamps, child support, and she doesn't fricking work. She's the kind of person who trades their food stamps for cash and blows her money on stupid crap like trips to California and green herb to smoke. She literally only cares about someone if she can use them. As a contrast, my cousin with the 7 kids works her butt off. She's a little embarrassed that she gets government help because she feels responsible for having all 7 of her children. But no matter how hard she works, she really only just makes enough for the bills, and the food stamps she gets buys just enough food to last a month. Growing kids eat a lot, if you didn't know that already. Mind you, I was 20, turning 21. And I always had a fair bit of money left after every paycheck. My bills were paid on time, and I'd help my mother out from time to time as well. We visited the kids one day, and the third youngest told me that Christmas was coming, but he is excited that they get to eat good food on Christmas. These kids live off ramen and ravioli. Hearing him say this shattered my heart. All of her kids are well behaved for the most part, and they deserve a good Christmas. I started asking them what they wanted. In order from oldest to youngest, Dax wanted headphones and a new sweater, Jen wanted a sweater and nail polish, Darren wanted a football and cake, JR wanted a soccer ball and cake, and Zed wanted Transformers and Power Rangers, whilst Nana wanted a My Little Pony. Jay wanted anything Paw Patrol. Obviously, I've changed their names here. So I talk to my cousin in Spanish, since the kids don't understand it yet, and I tell her how I'll take Christmas off and how I want to take the kids for her. She looked like she wanted to cry. She thanked me and told me she'd try to pay me back. I told her no, and then she stated she'd pick up an extra shift because she still wanted to get them something. So I got paid and I gave myself a $40 limit per child. I got each kid 2 big presents from Walmart, and with the remaining money I got them all extra small stuff from the dollar store. Her kids appreciate everything you get them. The 2 that wanted cake, they got cake. I even put a bow on that thing, and we hid it behind the milk and eggs in the fridge. Now, I guess my cousin told her sister, because I got a call from her sister, and this is how the conversation went. She rang up and said, "Hey, Chris told me you're doing Christmas for her kids." I said, "Yeah, they're spending Christmas Eve at my house. Mum's cooking dinner, and we're opening presents the next morning." "Surely you have room for one more?" "Are you talking about your kid?" "Of course I am." "Alright, no problem. Drop him off on Christmas Eve night so that he can eat and watch movies, and then you can pick him up the next morning." "No problem." Mind you, after buying the kids their presents and my parents theirs, I was a little broke. The entitled cousin had called me the day before Christmas Eve, so I scrounged what I could and I got her kid some dollar store toys. Christmas Eve comes and my mum picks up the 7 and brings them to the house. They're flabbergasted by the presents under the tree and in the stockings with their names. The older ones goofing about who got what. I wait an hour or 2 and my cousin never brings her kid. So we feed the kids and start watching movies. After about 3 movies, all of the kids pass out due to food comas. The next morning we wake up and there's no word from my entitled cousin. The kids start diving into their presents. JR and Darren have some Christmas cake and they share with their siblings. Everything is in full swing. Then there's a banging on the door. I open it and I'm not really happy. "Why the frick are you banging on my door? Oh, it's you guys. Why didn't you bring your kid last night?" My cousin says, "Watch your mouth. I got busy and I couldn't make it." I'm smelling bullcrap at this point and I roll my eyes. "You've said worse stuff in front of your kid. You want to come in?" "Sorry, we don't have time. Can we just get his presents, his meal, and go?" "His meal?" "Yeah, your mum cooked." "Yeah, she cooked last night. You were busy and the kids ate it all." "You didn't save my kid a plate?" "Well, you never bought him, so no." "Whatever, just give us his present." Her child looks like he wants to stay and play. I felt bad for her kid. I walked in and swam through the wrapping paper until I got to his presents. They were small, so I'd put them in a gift bag. He opened them on my porch and his eyes lit up. "Whoa, a ninja, a wrestler. Ooh, silly putty. I got a puzzle. I love this. Thank you, Momo." That's what my nephews call me. I got a little glomp and I hugged him back and said Merry Christmas. My cousin, meanwhile, "That's it?" I gave her a look, trying to compose myself. My witch meter was rising. So I said, "What do you mean? How much did you spend on them?" "That's really none of your business." "You know, you're selfish. You bought him these cheap toys so you could buy Chris and her kids all that crap. Let my kid have one of each of their toys so it's fair." And then my witch meter explodes. "Are you insane?" I close the door and cover her kid's ears. "It's Christmas. Be glad I bought anything at all. You only ever call us when you want something. You rob your son of a good time because you only care about yourself. It's not fair to him. You spend your money on bullcrap when you have a whole child to care for. You only have one child, and because you milk your baby daddy, that poor soul pays loads of money for his son, but you spend that money on your nails and green herb. How about you act your age and be responsible for once?" She looks shocked. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm a woman who didn't try to trap a man by getting pregnant on purpose. A woman who doesn't get assistance but pays taxes, so lazy witches like you can feed your kid. The woman that bought your kid Christmas presents because I wasn't selfish like his mother. This lady looked like she wanted to hit me. She would have swung if my mum hadn't come outside. She's intimidated by my mum, so she takes her child and leaves. She later ended up moving to Chicago to mooch off her mother. I hope her kid's okay and that he doesn't pick up her horrid habits. Late update, I talked to my cousin with the 7 kids and she got a hold of her mother in Chicago. The child is taller now, damn his genes, and his grandmother now has legal custody of him. His mother was in trouble with the law. As a surprise, it wasn't substance-related, and she's serving time and lost her custody. His father lives here in Las Vegas and he can't afford to take care of him since he's struggling to take care of himself. The cousin is planning a trip to save his allowance so he can come and visit us. I gave him $250 to help. Was I a jerk for calling my cousin out like that? Nope, at least you made sure that the kid in question didn't hear you or took measures to minimize that. I honestly don't know how some people like this can justify their behavior to themselves. I think a part of the judgment on her rests on whether she didn't take the kid based on spontaneous laziness, or whether she had planned to do this the whole time just to score a free gift. I mean, she's a pretty lousy parent either way, and it looks like social services agreed with me on that count. But inconveniencing a bunch of other people just to score free food and presents that you didn't even plan to let your kid enjoy a celebration for is just so simultaneously lazy and crappy. At least her kid sounds like he's maybe a little better than his mum. Hopefully, free from her influence, he can grow up to be a well-adjusted and decent guy who learns from her mistakes. It sure sounds like he's got a rough deal if his dad can't afford to see him either. This did make me remember how, as a kid, you're so darn appreciative of the cheapest bargain bin toys. Much like the one kid, up until my early teens, I would be beyond stoked with a piece of plastic from the bargain bin store. I think it shows maybe the extent of the other aunt's financial hardship that the kids actually wanted sweaters. Actually wanting warm clothing instead of just having it automatically would give one an appreciation that most of us don't get until we move out of home. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. We find some cash in the sea, and an awful woman tries to use her kid to claim the bounty. They get sweet, sweet karma. I live in Australia where we have some really nice beaches. This beach we normally go to isn't too dumpy, but it's mainly good for swimming in the deeper parts. The facilities are really good. I'd say that most of the time it's upper middle class people who go there, plus surfers in other parts of the beach. So of course we have our fair share of entitled people and parents. On to the story. The forecast said it would be an absolute scorcher on that day, maximum of 42 degrees Celsius, which is about 107 for you Americans. My family decided to go to the beach that day to cool off. Me and my sister were swimming in the sea when we noticed something floating on top of the sea that wasn't foam from the waves. Sister and I both saw it, but I was closer. It was still fairly deep in the water, so it couldn't have been there long, which will be important later. My sister tells me to grab it for her. I went out to grab it, and it was a Ziploc bag. She and I swam closer to the shore to look at it, and we weren't prepared for what was in there. $120 in cash, mostly in 20s and 10s. This is in Australian dollars, so that's about 85 US bucks or 65 pounds in 2018, for those using these currencies. But don't quote me on that as it probably isn't 100% accurate, I'm pretty much guessing. The Ziploc bag had pretty much nothing else in it, no wallet, so we couldn't trace the cash to a person. Anyway, my sister and I went back to where Mum and Dad were sitting on the beach, thinking about what to do. If this had been like $10 or something, divide the above by 12 for reference in other currencies, we probably would have kept it. But this was a lot of money. Someone was probably looking to reclaim it. Dad said, "Damn, how much is in there?" My sister said, "There's like $120. Alright, you better look for who owned it then. Why don't you two go and hand it in to the lifeguards?" We walk to the lifeguards and I catch this lady sitting near them eyeing us and the Ziploc bag. "Excuse me, we're looking to hand this in for someone to claim if they're missing it." The lifeguard says, "We'll keep it safe." I was feeling kind of insecure with that lady now, so I decided to keep an eye on the lifeguard station for anyone. Sure enough, she didn't even wait 2 minutes to get in there. I was too far away to overhear anything, but I was sure it was about the money. A second lifeguard walked over to us with the lady in tow. So she's claiming she lost the money in this Ziploc bag a while ago. We were wondering if you could link the money back to her. My sister confirms there was no identifying feature on the Ziploc to trace it. Okay, where did you find it? It probably would have washed up with some other stuff if it was a while ago. I say, it was the dumping ground over there. The first lifeguard chimes in. Couldn't have been there long then, otherwise time would have made sure it got washed up on shore. My dad said, strange that she's claiming it then, considering she's completely dry. The mother says, 1 second. After a minute, she comes back with her kid who's about 9 and soaking wet. The kid says, I must have dropped it while I was out there. His mum begins again. Please give us the money. I was going to go and buy him an ice cream and some video games. The lifeguards are looking suspicious at this point. We can't really give you the money unless we can conclusively prove that you had it. She's looking at the bag and sees that one of the notes has a tear in it and whispers to her child. I think one of the notes has a tear in it from what I can remember. Lifeguard 1 inspects the bag. Okay, that proves you own the money. Here you go. We'll just get your number as a reference. They get her number, and she walks away whispering to her kid, probably congratulating him. Then they break into a run. 15 minutes later, this other guy approaches the first lifeguard. G'day, I've lost some money in a Ziploc bag. It was about $120, I think. Oh, we've just had this lady claim it. Can you prove it's yours? He was annoyed. Yeah, it has my number on the bottom. I have my phone, so you can call it. My sister and I hadn't noticed this number on it. The lifeguards have this, oh poop, look on their face. Alright, we'll try calling her. He puts her on speakerphone. I can see her walking onto the beach with her kid holding an ice cream. Someone else is actually claiming the money. Can you come back? I'm actually driving back home now, sorry, so I can't. Goodbye. Oh, that's strange considering I can still see your bag here. My sister points her out on the beach and we all confront them. The lifeguards look angry about how she lied. Why don't you hand us the bag, miss? She does, but it has about $30 left in it. The first lifeguard calls the number on the bottom of the bag and it works, proving him to be the rightful owner. The second one turns to the lady. You stole this cash. Oh, that's just a coincidence. He just wants my money. While the kid is screaming, Mummy, I want another ice cream. This devolves into a screaming match with the entitled mother and her kid versus the lifeguards, the unlucky dude, me and my sister. So I'll skip it because nothing substantial happened here. Finally, lifeguard 1 takes conclusive action. Alright, we're calling the cops. This is a criminal case of theft. You'll be compensating him for the money you spent, plus extra. He calls the police. I won't be doing any such thing. If the police arrive, I'll just tell them that guy paid you to say this. Frick you, you piece of crap. The unlucky guy is just looking pretty shook by this point. The lady literally attempts to run off with her kid and the money, but gets caught by the lifeguards who are 10 times fitter than the whale-sloth hybrid that she is. The police arrive and she's arrested. The second lifeguard turns to the guy. I'm sorry we couldn't give you all your money back. That's fine. Thanks so much to you two for helping me find the money and for standing up for me, he says to my sister and I. This guy, being the absolute lad that he is, gives us $5 each. If you're reading this, you're a bloody legend, mate. The story ends with the unlucky guy getting paid $150 by this lady, plus the money she didn't spend of the original $120, and the lady received a fine for theft, and would you believe it, resisting arrest. In short, me and my sister find $120 in the sea and hand it to the lifeguards like the good people that we really aren't. This mother and her kids see this as an opportunity to claim the cash. They get away with it and spend most of the money, but then the rightful owner comes and they refuse to hand it over. Evolves into a screaming match with this lady getting arrested, all while her kid moans for another ice cream. Unlucky dude gets his money back, and more. Being the legend he is, he gives some to us. First of all, I'm really sorry for the pseudo-Australian, Kiwi, British accents I was doing, folks. Yeah, the woman here is unquestionably the jerk, although in fairness, I think we all know any number of people who would have claimed the money just on the assumption that nobody was ever going to claim it. I don't condone it, but there are legitimately grown adults who seem to live by the playground rules of finders keepers, losers weepers. That said, I don't know many that would resist police arrest to keep their ill-gotten gains. And I know for a fact that some of them would give up the moment it was clear that no one believed them. They'd shoot their shot, accept the fact that they were no worse off than before, and continue on with their lives. This lady lied, kicked, and screamed every inch of the way, going so far as to pretend she wasn't there when she very blatantly was still on the beach, and she suspected that she was about to be caught. What did she even spend $90 on in 15 minutes next to a beach? Was that just a convenient crystal dealer in the car park or something? She might simultaneously be the most entitled and efficient petty criminal I've heard of in quite some time. That's a well-deserved fine and sentence for her. It annoys me even more that she got her kid in on the scam. Hopefully with her well-punished example, the young one will realize that this sort of crime is better off avoided. Am I the jerk for leaving my in-laws' house with my daughter after she told me she was feeling uncomfortable? I've been with my fiancé for 2 years. We're getting married soon, and I've only met her family a couple of times. My daughter, Judy, who's 16, has never met them till very recently, where they hosted dinner to celebrate the 4th of July. And that's when they met her for the first time. Judy has a visible burn scar on her forehead. It was due to an accident she was in when she was 9. She used to be incredibly insecure about it, to the point where I was forced to homeschool her, and it was hard trying to deal with and navigate through this rough time. Now she's doing a lot better, though some comments can really cause her to become stressed out and anxious. My fiancé knows all that and normally respects it. Before we went to her parents' house, I asked her to tell them about Judy and her struggle and to get them to try not to say anything negative about it or possibly even mention it. She said she'd guarantee that no one will say anything. We got to the event and they talked to Judy, and she slowly warmed up to them. Everything was going well until it was dinner time. My future mother-in-law looked at Judy while she was eating and pointed at her scar. Basically started asking questions about it, which made Judy lose her appetite and start to get uncomfortable. I kept sending my fiancé and her mum signs to knock it off, but to no avail. Finally, my future mother-in-law brought up the wedding and asked my fiancé if it would be possible to, quote, Photoshop the scar out of any wedding photos, any that would have Judy in them, just in case they would distract viewers. I was dumbfounded. My fiancé said nothing, just stared casually while nodding. I looked at Judy and it was clear that this was getting to her. I leaned closer and asked if she was feeling uncomfortable and said that we could leave if the answer was yes. She took her time and then nodded and said, "Yes, I'm feeling uncomfortable right now." I got up and told her to get ready because we were leaving. My fiancé, her mum, and the family started insisting we finish dinner and stay, but I refused. I took Judy and got in the car and left before even talking to my fiancé. Obviously, she was angry. She called and was angry talking about how I disrespected her parents by taking Judy and leaving in the middle of dinner and not even saying goodbye. I told her that Judy was feeling uncomfortable with future mother-in-law's comments and questions. My fiancé then said Judy overreacted and needs to go back to therapy if simply mentioning her scar causes her to react that way. I got tired of arguing and asked her to give us some time, but she went off on me and said that I have no respect for her and her family and that what I did was irrational and now she won't speak to me till I clear things up with her family, after ruining their celebratory dinner. She later justified it as a joke, saying her mum didn't mean it that way and didn't know that this was going to happen. I disagree because I already told her about how Judy feels about it, and that request was ignored. Well, unfortunately, it seems like the person who posted this had no further updates after the incident here. I really hope that they didn't go forward with the marriage without some serious conversations about respecting the subject. But there are a series of pretty glaring red flags on display that I feel inclined to point out. Them not appropriately briefing your parents on the topic after assuring you that they had, and implying that they might be fine photoshopping the scar out and leaving your daughter to infer that your fiancé thought she was ugly because of it. Saying that the author and daughter were disrespecting her family, despite the examples I've just given of her not showing proper respect or even basic human decency in a sensitive subject. And finally, passing it all off as a joke when it was clear how many scores of lines she and her family had crossed. Look, we all make mistakes, but when you realize you're in the wrong, respect your partner enough to admit your fault and have some damn accountability. Loading all of this on them and saying that they're stupid for not getting the joke is just so darn toxic. The situation makes me sad, and as I said, I'm hoping that there was counseling or a breakup here before the wedding went ahead for the daughter's sake. Helicopter Dad thinks he controls their life because he pays the rent. This wasn't me, but my friend and roommate. It just happened the other day and she's still angry about it and said that I could share it. For some context, she's a pre-law student, aiming to get a nice degree in business law. Her parents are pretty successful people, they live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. Her dad is a straight-up helicopter dad. just bullying and controlling. He controls her bank account and calls her to yell at her whenever she buys pretty much anything. Like, "You spent $8 at Starbucks? Why did you get a Subway twice this week? Why did you spend $50 at Target?" Additionally, he pays her rent, she pays her own utilities, which will be important later. He believes he can set all the rules for everyone in our house. I told him straight up he doesn't get to dictate my life in any way, and he can just F right off with that. My friend said that I apparently impressed him because he's not used to people standing up to him, but he still doesn't like me. One major rule is no men are allowed in the apartment ever. He seems to think that if there are any male naughty bits in the apartment, his daughter can't help but screw them. It's a good thing my cats are girls, I guess. He doesn't think she has any standards or nothing, although he's lightened up a bit after freaking out that my friend has a boyfriend and the fact that this boyfriend has stayed over before. He also demanded she come home every weekend, a 2-hour drive without traffic, because he doesn't want her to go to parties. Luckily, she and her level-headed mother have gotten him to lower it to once a month. As a result, she keeps a lot of stuff from him, which makes him more angry and less trusting of her. So he tightens the leash and it just goes round and round. For example, he doesn't know that 2 boys subleased from our previous roommates for the summer. They were in the dorms but taking summer classes, so they needed a place to stay for the summer. They were my old roommate's brother and his friend. Shocker, none of us did the deed together and there were no wild parties. He also doesn't know that her boyfriend has been living with us since May, since he graduated, and is staying with us until he finds work, because he just got his CPA. She also didn't tell her dad that she took a part-time job over the summer. Now, the last 2 bits are important. See, her boyfriend has been staying with us. He's also been paying utilities. I think he should also pay rent, or at least half of her rent, but whatever. She also wanted to have some fun money to go out over the summer. She was taking summer classes but had a light workload. She got a job at the liquor store a block from us and worked there all summer and left after the fall semester started. So because her father can see her bank account and he'd apparently lose his mind if he ever found out his daughter dared to work and try to be a responsible adult, she never told him and never deposited her checks. She cashed them out. Additionally, because her boyfriend is also paying utilities, we've been splitting it 3 ways instead of half, which was showing in her bank account since she has to pay the full bill because it's in her name. Fast forward to yesterday. My friend ended up depositing some of her cash from her job this summer in order to pay for last month's utilities. Because her boyfriend forgot to pay her, he PayPals her the money so her dad can't see it, and the check I gave her bounced because at the time I didn't have any money in my account. I'd told her to wait until I got paid, but she deposited it the day before I would. The bounced check and the sudden $100 deposited in her account caught the attention of her father. What resulted was an hour-long screaming match on the phone. She told me later some of the crap that he'd said. He'd called her a tramp and a liar and demanded that she report me to the police for fraud. Dude, it's just a bounced check, it's all good. He dug into her because she admitted the $100 came from her job this summer because he was accusing her of either selling substances or herself. That's where he lost his crap. Apparently, dear old dad was more livid than anything that his daughter would dare take work at such a lowly place. His words. Specifically, he was mad that she didn't tell him she had a job, that she should have been focusing more on schoolwork. But he was most upset about where she was working. It wasn't so much that it was a liquor store, but that it was retail. "Why the frick would you work retail?" he screamed. "Because it's just a block away and it was easy work, Dad," my roommate screamed back. "How dare you? You shouldn't have been working. You needed to focus on school." "I didn't have much schoolwork, Dad, so I got a job to have some extra money." "How dare you work at such a lowly place? We didn't work this hard to have our daughter work retail. You should be above that. If you wanted a job, you should have gotten that office job Marie told you about." She told me later that her dad has a real issue with retail workers. He seems to think that the only people who work at retail or as waiters are failures and high school dropouts, so he doesn't want his daughter to work among, quote, lowlives and addicts. "Dad, I just wanted something easy and within walking distance. I didn't want to drive 2 hours just for a summer job." "You shouldn't be working with lowlives and addicts. You should have talked to me first." "I didn't talk to you because I knew you'd do this." "This is why we can't trust you. You've always done crap like this." Then proceeds to bring up her past screw-ups from middle school and high school.
He doesn't seem to understand that she's changed quite a bit since then. She then digs into him over his bullcrap. She hangs up on him, telling him that she won't talk about the past with him, and that she's more than happy to talk about her screw-ups when he can talk to her like an adult. I'm so proud of her for saying that. She hasn't talked to him since yesterday. Her level-headed mum called saying she was sorry he yelled at her, and that he's just upset because his mother's in failing health, and then he saw the bounced check, so he turned his stress towards her. I took her out to breakfast, my treat since her dad would have lost his crap if he saw that she spent money at a diner, while she vented about her father. I finally convinced her to get her own bank account where she can at least put her fun money and the cash she gets from her boyfriend for utilities. Luckily, he still doesn't know about him staying with us. We also decided to split the utilities by half so her dad doesn't lose his crap again and her boyfriend would pay us back in the difference for his share. Since she was still hopping mad, we ended up using that energy to clean the apartment and bake bread, since she was too upset to focus on schoolwork. Her dad has approved of her getting some groceries today, so she said she'd buy me some to pay me back. And Monday, I'm going to help her set up her own account with the one bank this town has. I feel so bad since all this happened because my check bounced, and I'm going to buy her a cake or something to apologize. Okay, update. This morning he called her to apologize, which is honestly just another red flag to add to the pile in my opinion. Berate and verbally attack someone and then say you're sorry and that it's because of XYZ, but as she keeps telling me, she's used to it. Can't wait to help her get that bank account. I mean, he's the jerk, right? Well, this dad is a very clear example of no amount of money being able to buy class. God forbid that his daughter willingly associate with retail workers and lower-income folks, who apparently are all depraved and perverted criminals. I really hope that this girl became financially independent in the end. I can't see why she'd want to maintain contact with her awful father. But at least if she does, removing all of his financial leverage on her life would hopefully keep him in check when he realizes that she can just cut off contact. I know that in his own way he does clearly care about her and want her to at least be successful, but there is way too much toxic judgment going on to her for perfectly normal things and comforts that all people deserve to enjoy in their lives. I would be fascinated to know if he went to parties and had basic human interactions in his younger life, because his rules come across as completely out of touch. What a member. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Entitled aunt wants me to give everything to my cousins. Okay, so I have a bunch of entitled people and stories in general because my luck is great. And I live with some entitled family members. Anyway, backstory to this story. It happened years ago, so I might miss some details, but I'll try to make it as close to reality as possible. So yeah, my birthday. I've known this aunt for a couple of years now after my uncle divorced his first wife, and they didn't marry despite having 2 kids, my youngest cousin and his sister. So when I turned 11, they came to our place. I was excited. I was turning 11, and my parents decided to have a small family gathering as my birthday party. I didn't have many friends, and the ones I had couldn't come, but I didn't mind being around adults. My entitled aunt and Uncle Steve arrive, and it begins. My 2 cousins, B1 who was around 3 and B2 who's about 6, ran past me into the house without even saying hello. My aunt smiles and looks at my stunned mum. My mum doesn't like confrontations and she just shrugs it off. Apparently my aunt didn't bring a gift or plan to gift me anything because she just looked at me, said happy birthday, and walked by me, with my uncle looking at her rather annoyed. She just shrugged. I was confused. Steve was wearing a necklace at the time, so he was like, frick, unclasped it and gave it to me as a birthday present. It was a golden, thin necklace, but it was pretty. I didn't mind, was very happy and showed it to my mum quite excitedly. 11-year-old me saw my aunt give me and Steve a glare. I was confused, but I didn't care. I just wanted to celebrate. Well, my plan was to enjoy some food and sweets as we talked and I looked at cartoons, but no, the conversation goes like this. My aunt says, well, V, that's my name by the way, should look after the other 2 while we enjoy some food, right? My mum says, they can stay right here with us, right? My mum looks at Dad, who's too focused on the conversation he has with Steve, and he just says, you know best, dear. My aunt then says, "No, my kids are too young and I don't want them to hear our adult discussions. V can stay with them in the other room." Mum looks at me and I look at her, and at that point I was rather annoyed but couldn't say much, seeing the position Mum was in, and I didn't want to cause much of a ruckus. I just shrug it off and walk away with my cousins into the other room. I have to mention that around 8 I got my first computer, a big square box, and around 11 I got my first phone. It wasn't amazing, a simple phone that was used for calls only. My parents gave it to me to have a way to call home in case anything happened at school or if I decided to stay at my granny's. But yeah, continuing. So I had that phone on the desk beside my computer. I wasn't going to leave it in my school bag all the time, so I put it out. Rat number 1, the 3-year-old, sees my computer and lets out a squeak. He runs out to it and starts pushing the box. I assume he wants to play, so I turn it on and put him in the chair. While I'm doing this, B2 sneaks behind me and grabs the phone. I only notice it when I hear her laugh. I walk towards her and ask her to give it to me, to which she just shakes her head and hides it behind her back. B1 is spinning around in my chair, it's an office chair and real spinny, and I rush to him before he hits something or himself. Meanwhile, B2 is talking to her mum with my phone. My aunt is saying, "Oh, what do you have there?" B2, "I took this toy from V." My mum opines that's not a toy, it's her phone. Of course, my aunt has an opinion on this.
Isn't she a bit young for this?
Oh, not really, she's just using it to let us know where she is.
B2 likes it, shouldn't you give it to her?
My mum laughs and thinks it's a joke. Oh, I'm sorry, you'll have to ask V about that, it's her present after all. B2 looks at her mum and her mum looks to me but says nothing, grabs the phone from B2 and puts it on the table beside her. She says something to B2 which my mum doesn't hear and nor do I because it was really quiet, and B2 comes back to me smiling. Now that's when I remember I left 3-year-old B1 on my PC. Frick. I go back to my room to see B1 smacking the mouse on the desk, annoyed that he died in the game. He was playing Hugo Island or something like that. Really fun game. I say, "Hey, stop that." B1 starts wailing and tries to get off the chair but falls from it onto the floor and starts screaming more. Of course, my aunt and mum come rushing into the room and the aunt looks at me. "What happened? What did you do?" I was pretty scared and didn't say anything. My aunt rushed to B1 and scooped him off the floor while glaring at my mum. Due to pressure and embarrassment, mum gave me an earful for leaving B1 alone. That finished pretty quick and cake time arrives. I took out a toy of mine and start playing with it. Around 11 to 13, I was pretty obsessed with these potato-looking buddies who were actually balloons filled with flowery stuff with smiley faces. They were pretty cool and good stress relievers. A birthday present from a good friend of mine was a yellow one like that. B1, who was sitting beside me and Steve, sees my toy and gets interested. "Gimme!" I look at him and said, sure, and gave it to him. He played with it for a while and I forgot about it as time passed. Cake happened and, well, they sang happy birthday and as I was about to blow my candles out, my aunt speaks.
B2 wants to blow out the candles. She should do it. You're too old for it anyways.
I look at her, Dad looks at her, Steve face palms slightly while holding B1, and Mum just glares. My aunt just shrugs and says,
"It would make her happy."
Everyone stays quiet and I was too embarrassed to even say anything. I eventually just let out, "Sure," to dissipate the tension, and B2 jumps and blows the candles. Pretty sure she also spit slightly all over my cake as she failed to blow the candles out, but 11-year-old me had just given up caring by this point. I walked into the kitchen with the excuse of washing my hands and my mum saw me and followed me. She knew I was depressed and just hugged me, saying that next year they won't invite Steve and my aunt again. We returned to the room and I eat some sweets. I didn't want cake as it didn't feel like mine anymore, so I just ate some cookies. Finally, it was time to leave. Steve was totally going to have a huge blown-up argument with my aunt, and my mum was just tired. As tired as I was. That's when I remembered that B1 didn't give me my yellow toy back anymore, and suddenly my mum notices that my phone wasn't on the table either. My mum says, "Hey, have you seen V's phone?" to my aunt. My aunt says, "No idea." B2 runs behind my aunt and I notice the phone. I tell my mum and she tells Steve. Steve sees this and takes the phone from B2, who starts yelling and crying, throwing a huge tantrum on my floor. My aunt looks on in disbelief with a Karen expression. "How dare you do this to my child?"
Steve just gives my mum the phone and then I point out that B1 is still holding my toy. My aunt says, "You should just give it to him. He'll start crying, you know." Steve tries to pry it out of his chubby hands, but B1 isn't having any of it. He digs his nails into the poor thing, and the harder Steve tries to pull it, the harder B1 squeezes it. Finally, Steve manages to pull it out of B1's hands with a bad ending. The toy is torn, and the insides fall on the floor. B1 starts wailing and throwing a tantrum as well, and both kids cry and my aunt is visibly annoyed. Steve looks at me apologetically and gives me some money to buy a new one. They leave with my aunt saying nothing, just carrying the crying B1 as Steve grabs B2 and walks out the door. We can still hear the kids wailing from down the street. I'm just left like that. I end up helping Mum clean and go to try and buy another buddy like the one I was gifted. Long story short, it had been limited edition and they didn't have that specific one anymore. I bought another green one and went back home. That's how my day ended. In short, Aunt thinks I'm too old for anything and demands everything for her brats. Oh my god, screw this woman. A sentiment that seems to have been running across her partner's mind as well. I guess you're the one with her, and if you want to co-parent effectively, you have to say nothing sometimes. But you probably should have spoken up earlier at this particular birthday party, Steve. Sounds like he might justifiably miss out on a few more social occasions if they can't invite him, without bringing along the monster aunt from hell and the two kids that she's enabling. And as usual, let's just say that these are just young kids behaving like a lot of young kids do. It's on the parents to reinforce correct behavior and keep an eye on them. Specifically kicking all of the kids out of the dining room and then blowing your lid when they get into shenanigans and hurt themselves is just garbage parenting. Also, taking away all of the birthday girl's festivities and rights to hang out with the adults, and letting her kids do all of the birthday stuff instead, it's just gross. What a nasty aunt. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that I want to do the deed with her son? So my husband had to spend 2 months in a different state for work. He came back 9 days ago. I'm obviously thrilled he's back and I've missed him a lot. I was hoping we'd be able to spend some time together, just the two of us. However, his mum came over when he was supposed to come back home. I was slightly annoyed, but I know she was just excited for her son to be back. However, she never left. Like, I was prepared to deal with her being there for a day or two, but not 9 days. Because she's been there for 9 days, we haven't had a second of time together. She insists on staying here instead of a hotel. For the record, she lives an hour away. The guest room is right next to ours and the walls are paper thin. When the two of us go out, she comes with us. Or makes one of us stay with her, because otherwise we'd be bad hosts. She follows us around the house constantly. We want to cuddle and watch movies, and she's sitting right there in the armchair staring at us. We want to go to a romantic restaurant together. Better make that table for 3. We've even left her in the living room to go chat in our room, and she follows us. Earlier today, I just asked her to leave, even though both of us have been hinting that she needs to go. She kept saying she wasn't ready to go yet and wanted more time with her son. I tried telling her we wanted some alone time, and she kept insisting that she join us. Finally, I snapped and said, "Since you seem to be so oblivious, I'll put this bluntly. I want to F your son. If you don't want to see or hear, then you need to leave." I know this isn't the classiest response, but I was frustrated. Anyway, she yelled at me but eventually left. We finally got to have our alone time, but now she's blowing up both our phones. She's saying that I'm disgusting and have no respect for her, her son, or myself. She keeps telling my husband that he shouldn't be with someone so crude, and how dare he let me speak to her like that. I'm sure you get the idea. After reading the feedback I'm getting, I'll definitely let my husband know that he needs to step up. I agreed that it should have been him who made her leave. I love him to death and want to be accommodating to his fear of making her angry, because she's nasty when she's angry and will turn his whole family against him. However, he needs to set boundaries. But I also know that what I said was really inappropriate, so am I the jerk? Ha! How out of touch do you have to not be able to imagine what a married couple might want to get up to after they've been apart for so damn long? Even aside from bedroom activities, couples need time to be together. I know that my mum specifically forbids me from joining my married siblings on walks and stuff on family trips unless they invite me, because their time together is sacred. And I guess what my mum does is a little further in the opposite direction than the lady in the story, but it's a heck of a lot more reasonable than what's going on here. It sounds like maybe the husband should have stepped up sooner. Maybe this will be a good learning moment for him. With his mother blowing up his phone and telling him his wife is disgusting, maybe he'll be forced to take a stand. Possible silver lining, I hope that it works out.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.